In a realm where humanity and spirit beasts walk side by side, those who command these creatures hold the power to shatter the very heavens and the earth. Standing at the absolute apex of this era is a man named Su Lang, the chosen master blessed by the legendary Lunar Butterfly. This is no ordinary creature, but a myth made flesh, a beast capable of rewinding the flow of time itself. In his gaze one sees the divine favor bestowed upon him by the gods themselves. He bears the supreme title of Lunar King, worshipped by the masses. Yet, inside a humble room, we find a young man hunched over a screen. While the world outside praises the Lunar King as a god sitting atop the clouds, the man himself is drenched in a cold sweat. For the only truth more shocking than his fame is that he, Su Lang, is indeed the legendary Lunar King. Or at least he occupies the body. He is losing his mind because he just transmigrated from Earth, and the moment his soul descended, fragmented memories flooded his mind. It turns out the original Lunar King died in the most pathetic way possible, falling out of bed and cracking his skull. Our protagonist prays to every deity that the legends are true. If he really inherited the powers of the Lunar King, he would be invincible. Desperate, he commands the status window to open. But reality strikes like a hammer. He is nothing but a trash-tier one-star tamer. His so-called divine beast is just a shimmering moth. He curses the heavens, realizing this deceptive system played a cruel joke. Because this butterfly isn't legendary, it is just glorified glitter. The terrifying issue is that the entire world expects god-tier feats from him. How can a novice survive this crushing pressure? To make matters worse, the original owner was a massive show-off who courted danger constantly. He fooled the masses into believing he possessed the Reincarnation Butterfly, a myth that only manifests in the face of true despair. Whenever he put on a show, fangirls screamed, his name captivated by his peerless elegance. Even when standing before the mighty 8-star Empress Kanyu, the original fool didn't flinch. Our hero can't comprehend such suicidal confidence. Resigned to his fate, he turns his gaze to his spirit beast. The shimmering butterfly manifests in the air. To the untrained eye, it bears the majestic traces of divinity. As it flutters toward him, he admits it is adorable. But his face twists in despair instantly. Cuteness won't save his life when this thing has zero combat power. A cataclysmic battle is destined to occur in 3 years. But forget that, currently he couldn't even defeat a janitor at the academy. Unless he awakens a game-breaking cheat, maintaining the title of Lunar Emperor is nothing but a pipe dream. Suddenly, a dormant memory from the previous owner sparks within his mind. Could that item be the key? He whispers the words, Lunar Book. Instantly, a mystical tome materializes in his grasp. He flips it open, marveling at the detailed illustrations inside. The first page displays common moon attribute creatures. He realizes that by collecting the essence of these beasts and combining them, he can synthesize a brand new entity just like a high-stakes card game. The original owner ignored this treasure simply because the book claimed that his butterfly was weak. What a short-sighted fool. Hope ignites in Su Lang's chest. He is a student at the Lunar Light Academy, the perfect hunting ground for these creatures. He steps out knowing he must maintain his cool facade and avoid any real combat, while frantically power leveling for the next 3 years. Meanwhile, in the elite tamer dormitory, a small bunny is being pampered. A voice claims this will boost its growth. But suddenly Su Jing, a girl clad in crimson arrogance, scolds her for associating with such trash-tier beasts. She warns that getting attached to weaklings is a fatal mistake. The girl Bei stammers that she won't form a soul contract. She is merely playing. However, Su Jing sneers, declaring that elites have a reputation to uphold. Being seen with garbage will repel powerful beasts. With burning enthusiasm, she declares they must emulate the great Lunar King, a man who only deigns to touch the absolute strongest monsters. Suddenly, the little bunny's ears twitch, sensing something approaching. Just as Su Jing insists, the lunar butterfly stays with the king because he bears no scent of weakness. The rabbit suddenly bolts toward a figure in the distance. The girls turn to look and their jaws hit the floor. It is him. The Lunar King stands there, radiating effortless style. They blush furiously, interpreting his blank stare as an oppressive, kingly aura. They believe his gaze alone could force nations to kneel. In reality, he is just frozen in terror because he is staring at a girl with actual cat ears. Remembering his predecessor's rule of cool aloofness, he silently walks away, heading straight for the moon pavilion. He gazes up at the structure. This sanctuary is teeming with low-level spirits. If he can fill his lunar book here, new evolutions await. Wandering the halls, he reaches out to floating motes of light. Instantly, the system pings. New illustrations are lighting up, collecting the essence of the moon element. A juvenile spirit fox, a shadow rat, and even the rare moonlight fish. Su Lang grins. He can see hidden battle stats and evolution paths. This sly fox has finally secured a system hack. Suddenly, his senses tingle. He stops dead in his tracks, standing before a towering, imposing door. A bone-chilling energy seeps from the cracks. Even the other spirit beasts seem to instinctively avoid this cursed space. He pushes the heavy doors open. There, atop a central altar, stands a creature of breathtaking beauty, an albino deer crowned with a crystalline purple horn. It moves with ethereal grace like a spirit from a dream. But as Su Lang steps closer, the system screams a red alert. Behold the white flower deer, a creature of peerless beauty reigning over the mid-tier spirit beasts. It possesses an arrogance to match choosing its company with extreme prejudice. Sang dismisses the system's hype, while the extras beside him mock the absurdity of wasting a fortune on a mere mid-ranking monster. They sneer, claiming they've never seen a beast pampered with such royalty. One brown-haired student theorizes it's purely for aesthetics. Just then, the deer turns its gaze. Sang scoffs, convinced it's just another vanity pet for the elite to flex their wealth. Suddenly, a high-pressure hydroblast strikes the student. The deer glares with pure disdain, sending the terrified duo scrambling. One screams that mid-tier beasts possess near-human intellect, urging a tactical retreat before they get slaughtered. The protagonist analyzes the beast, realizing the coward's words hold weight until his eyes lock with the creature's. A spark of recognition flares within the beast. Entranced by his peculiar gaze, she steps closer, circling him like a predator. She leans in dangerously close to his face, staring deep into his soul. Suddenly, the lunar book manifests in his hand. A system notification flashes, new beast unlocked. The illustration counter ticks up, but then, terror strikes Sang's heart. This isn't a mid-tier beast. It's a supreme-ranking calamity capable of annihilating an entire kingdom on a whim. A monster with intelligence transcending humanity. A queen that commands all lesser animals. This thing is a living nuclear warhead, sitting casually in the center of the academy. If this entity decides to unleash her power, the entire campus will be reduced to ash. He frantically deduces that if she is here, the academy must be certain she's docile. And since she only splashed those students instead of decapitating them, perhaps she truly has no malicious intent. However, he cannot ignore the terrifying possibility that she is concealing her true cultivation base from the world. Just like him, a man everyone fears as a powerhouse, but who is actually completely powerless. He glances at the misleading plaque labeling her a mid-tier. Their gazes hold. He knows the truth. She is fully aware of her own deception. But then, he flinches. She shifts into an aggressive battle stance. Does she fear he'll expose her secret identity? Thinking fast, he loudly proclaims that this mid-ranking creature is so breathtaking, he was simply paralyzed by her beauty. He knows the survival rule: do not become the enemy of a calamity. He strolls away, feigning interest in the scenery, until the enclosure door seals shut. Then he sprints for his life. Meanwhile, the deer remains still haunted by the boy's eyes, wondering what lineage could possess such a gaze. She retreats to her nest and retrieves a smartphone, the wallpaper, a selfie of her true form. She searches the database for a student with crescent moon eyes and gasps as a shocking realization hits her. Back at the tamer's dorm, Sang collapses, mentally drained. How dare the school keep a T-Rex in a petting zoo? No worse, that thing makes a dinosaur look like a puppy. It was a miracle he survived that encounter. In the wild, he would have needed a supreme beast of his own just to secure a corpse. And the tragic irony, his current team is bottom-of-the-barrel trash tier. But a realization dawns. The system reveals abilities only for creatures he physically touches. He laughs maniacally, declaring the world is in the palm of his hand. He resolves to return and verify this theory with another academy beast. On his way, he spots a rabbit, wondering if it's the same one from earlier. It's suspicious how calm it is. Lunar monsters usually surge with bloodlust at night. The rabbit stares back with innocent, cute eyes. The protagonist sweats. Could this be another god-tier monster in disguise? He cautiously reaches out to trigger the analysis. His fingers brush the fur, and nothing happens. The system reveals it has zero lunar physique. It's a dud. It can only cultivate during a full moon, making it weaker than even low-ranked trash. He calls himself a fool for thinking he'd stumble upon 2 hidden bosses in one day. Suddenly, a noise startles him. A phone clatters to the floor nearby. Someone is watching. Unbeknownst to him, Bure is observing from the shadows. She can't believe her eyes. The terrifying Lunar King is gently petting a weakling. She retreats to the girls' dorm shaken. Su Jing asks what's wrong, and the cat girl stammers, asking what the odds are that the Lunar King has a soft spot for small, helpless animals. Her friend is baffled, but Bure quickly laughs it off as a joke and runs to her room. Alone, she replays the scene, her heart racing, as she recalls the gentle expression on the Lunar King's face as he caressed the rabbit. She wonders with a blush if she is the only soul who has witnessed this tender side of the tyrant. Sua knows he was spotted, but he shrugs it off, figuring the sensitive bad boy image might score him points with the ladies. He retreats to his sanctuary, ready to embrace the void of sleep. But suddenly, a shadow flickers at the window. A presence of pure terror looms outside. An aura so demonic it threatens to stop his heart. Is this a human? No, it reeks of a humanoid calamity. The pressure is suffocating as the entity draws near. He cannot fathom her power level. But then the unthinkable happens. She drops to one knee in absolute submission. Greetings to the Lunar King and the Lunar God. Desperately, he scours the archives of this stolen life. He should know her. She is one of the 4 moons, a disciple of the very order he founded. Yet gazing at her, his mind draws a complete blank. He maintains a stoic silence. The poor girl trembles in cold sweat. To her, the king's silence is heavier than a mountain. Name unknown, no matter. He coldly demands her purpose. She reports that the Black Lunar Order is making moves in the central region, specifically against the Palace of the Gods. Zulian, clueless about these factions, turns his back to hide his confusion. Is there a problem, my lord? She asks. Silence, our boy commands. He claims to be meditating, but he's actually surfing the web. Fingers flying across the invisible keyboard, he retrieves the data. I remember now. It wasn't ignorance. The original owner was just arrogant. That fool didn't care about politics. She tries to clarify the order isn't the threat. It's the Palace of the Gods intervening that spells doom. That name strikes a chord in the protagonist's soul. The Palace of the Gods, a legendary sanctuary of power. It is a fortress housing thousands of mythical beasts. For 1,000 years they were invincible, but the Order of the Double Moon has shifted the balance in mere years. She reveals the grim truth. The 4 moons want to launch an assault. The problem? Zulian has absolutely zero defenses. He remains icy calm. Proceed, he says. Under the moonlight, danger cannot touch me. Her eyes sparkle with fanaticism. I understand completely. She quotes a famous scripture of the lunar god. Because of the butterfly, he is untouchable. With renewed faith, she vanishes into the night. Our boy is left sweating bullets. How did the original owner have the guts to say such cringe things? The second-hand embarrassment is lethal. But his crazy cultists ate it up. Those random, edgy phrases became legendary gospel out of nowhere. I feel the lunar god's presence. The moon favors me. The moon rises bright. Absolute nonsense. He is lost in this new world with a headache pounding in his skull. Transmigration is harder than it looks. At least the Palace of the Moonlight isn't an immediate threat. But he lacks the real butterfly. He is a king without a guard. If an assassin strikes now, he dies a pathetic death. Suddenly, a spark of memory ignites. The Grimoire. After unlocking so many creatures in the book, surely he deserves a reward. The system prompts the first exchange. His heart races with the thrill of the gamble. A random creature summon. The rules are simple. Keep the beast as a summon or sacrifice it to the system for raw stats. Our boy grins greedily. This is the path to true power. Not just relying on pets, but strengthening his own core. Please give me a supreme rank. He needs a legendary unit to survive this nightmare. He prays to every RNG god in existence. I seek the supreme beast. He smashes the button. Energy surges from the book, blinding him with golden light. The pages flutter wildly. System alert, a creature has been unlocked. The anticipation is killing him. And the result is translucent moonlight. It is a high-ranking creature, sure, but it's a support class. For a normal tamer, this is a jackpot. But for the lunar god, it changes nothing. In his current crisis, a healer won't save him from assassination. With a heavy heart, he feeds it back to the book. The system roars. Reward granted. The creature's strength flows into him. Experience points skyrocket. He is now a 1-star tamer. He almost hits 2 stars. The joy lasts for a microsecond before crushing disappointment sets in. It barely made a dent. Rage bubbles up against the body's previous owner. That fool could have been a god. He could have contracted an army of monsters. Instead, he chose a weak aesthetic build for a butterfly. As sleep claims him, regret washes over. He made a mistake. Even a weak beast is better than his current 0 defense. Why did he sacrifice it? He questions his own sanity. Is the original owner's personality bleeding into his own? He shakes his head violently. No, I won't be controlled by that dead fool's whims. He collapses onto the bed. Next time I pull a high rank, I'm keeping it. A vow made in darkness. Tomorrow is a new day. He will storm the pavilion to grind experience points. He will reclaim everything he missed. And he remembers the white deer. A plan forms in his mind. He will bring a tribute and perhaps touch the divine. The spirit deer awoke with a jolt. The sanctuary stood barren and cold. Was her home destined for demolition? A maiden approached, promising a life of luxury within the palace of the gods. Yet sorrow heavy in her voice, she urged the beast to obey. Terror gripped the poor creature. Was she being sold like merchandise to the lunar god's domain? Two uniformed envoys strode in, scoffing that a deity would reside in such a humble place. The azure-haired senior silenced her partner. Focus on the mission, do not court death with your mockery. She turned sharply, declaring they were only remission, present to secure the white flower deer. Suddenly, Xinghe, mistress of the pavilion, made her grand entrance. The envoys declared, "The night is eternal," an introduction reeking of arrogance to Xinghe's ears. Suppressing her disdain, she invited them to inspect the divine beast. But the envoy scoffed. She had seen the digital records, and offered 10 times the gold for immediate delivery. Xinghe froze. The white deer was rare, but this offer was suspicious. Seizing the moment, greed flashed in her eyes. "This is no ordinary beast," she spun, "but a direct descendant of the primordial ancestor. That is why we treated her as royalty. 10 times the price is an insult to her lineage." The crimson-haired junior argued it was merely a mid-tier beast regardless of ancestry. "Silence," her sister hissed, raising the bid to a staggering 20 times the price. The offer stunned the sister and ignited a fire in the pavilion owner's heart. But the redhead whispered frantically that such a sum was beyond their treasury. Yet the senior possessed the moon's voice, an artifact screaming of approaching calamity. To shield the palace of the gods, money meant nothing. She prepared to bid even higher. Suddenly, a spiritual pressure descended heavy enough to crush souls. Only one being possessed such terrifying aura, the Lunar King himself, was approaching. She trembled violently. Why would a supreme being grace this pavilion? Beside her, the redhead stood paralyzed, her sanity already shattering under the weight. "Do not meet his gaze," the sister mentally screamed. Too late. The girl turned, gasped, and collapsed from sheer terror. The senior stood frozen, forcing composure as she beheld him. Swang stepped forward, his eyes like abysses. The envoys bowed their heads in absolute submission. The poor girl dared not look up. To challenge him was to challenge the heavens themselves. While they feared for their lives, Swang stood there awkward and confused. Why was everyone acting like statues? Suddenly, Xinghe rushed forward. "My lord, what an honor." She revealed the double moon mark on her arm, pledging eternal loyalty. "These are mere envoys from the divine palace." She explained hastily, "here, to purchase the deer." She boasted of the astronomical price for the beautiful beast. But Swang was struck by a realization. They were blind to the creature's true cataclysmic potential. Such power was priceless. It could not be sold. He turned, and the sisters exhaled. Until he spoke. "Begone, this is no place for your kind. The moon is about to fall." Xinghe glanced upward. The sky was empty. She gasped, realizing it wasn't literal. It was a prophecy, a premonition of an unavoidable disaster. The azure-haired envoy realized the king foresaw the destruction of their palace. Suddenly, the foolish redhead stammered, "But the moon remains in the sky." Her words faltered into silence. "You dare question the moon god's chosen," the crowd roared. At that moment, she froze as our hero pierced her with his moonlit gaze. She collapsed into her sister's arms, defeated. The sister realized if the moon god decreed it, the creature was lost to them. However, as Swang walked away, he knew his cryptic words had successfully sparked fear of a calamity. Xinghe sneered at the trembling envoys. "Your moon fell long ago," she declared. "Only the king's eternal moon remains supreme." Meanwhile, our hero exhaled. They bought the bluff. Everyone believed his power was absolute. He didn't know when the charade would end, but his secret remained safe for now. Staff began clearing the hall. The deer cried out, "Unhand my treasures." The humans were baffled by the noise. The blonde caretaker wept, clinging to the beast she refused to abandon. "You are so beautiful," she sobbed, hugging the creature tight, while the deer just struggled to breathe. The woman approaches the bedding, determined to erase the spirit seal once and for all. But beneath the layers, she discovers a smartphone, a magazine, and a mirror. Why would a wild beast possess such human artifacts? Panic explodes in the deer's eyes. Her dark history is about to be. Unveiled rage boils over within her. She swears to protect her secrets at any cost, transforming into a demonic shadow and lunging for the kill. The phone is launched into the air, spinning until it lands perfectly in a stranger's grip. She whips around, terror gripping her heart. It is him. The protagonist stands at the threshold, and recognition ripples through the crowd. Her blood runs cold. Of all people, he is the one who must never see this. But fate is cruel. He glances at the screen and the beast freezes. The deer attempts to vanish, but he has already seen it. She was reading forbidden romance webtoons about beasts and humans. She is walking the path of corruption. But honestly, the allure of these stories is invincible. Su Lang casually tosses the phone aside, his voice cutting through the noise. The auction is cancelled. Everyone out. He drops a bombshell. By sunset, the Double Moon sect will purchase this entire territory. The crowd is left reeling, shocked by his ambition to acquire the entire pavilion. But internally, Su Lang is screaming with excitement. His plan was to farm trash mobs, but who could have predicted he would stumble upon a legendary supreme rank entity? In this situation, the wisest move is a tactical retreat. The onlookers are bewildered, whispering amongst themselves that no one expected, the Moon King himself, to intervene so abruptly. The woman, however, is consumed by curiosity. What was on that screen that caught the king's eye? Suddenly, the deer blurs into motion. She snatches the device with her teeth and bolts for the exit. She races past the lower beasts, paranoia consuming her. This damn king knows her true identity. He knows the tragic history. She has fought so hard to escape. She cannot let him leave this pavilion alive. She commands him to halt her, voice trembling, convinced he saw through her soul. Hearing her speak, realization strikes him. This beast is actually a young girl. Suddenly, the romance novels make perfect sense. She threatens him, vowing that if he whispers her secret to a soul, he will not leave this place. Seeing him pause, she wonders if her intimidation worked. But Su Lang simply smirks, assuring her that her embarrassing browsing history is safe with him. She looks visibly shaken when he mentions she caught his interest. But she snaps back, declaring she is not afraid of his title. Moon King or not. If you speak, I will hunt you down to the ends of the earth, Su Lang. Recalls the lore, supreme creatures possess a divine sense when their names are spoken. He leans in teasing. So if I whisper your name, you will appear by my side instantly. She screams, yes, in a fit of rage. But then she pauses, realizing how that sounded. Su Lang closes the distance, dropping his voice to a romantic whisper. Then it is our little secret. He smiles charmingly and walks away, leaving her stunned. But before he vanishes, she calls out a cryptic warning. Be careful of the full moon. Su Lang turns, nods in acknowledgement, and departs. She remains frozen, dwelling on his reaction. Outside, Su Lang is drenched in cold sweat. Did he actually manage to bluff a supreme beast? I am terrified, he thinks. Please, let her human form be beautiful for heaven's sake. He chuckles, relieved that her biggest fear was just social embarrassment. The only anomaly is her warning. Why tell the moon god to be cautious of the full moon if she truly believes he is the deity of this realm? Something sinister is brewing. Back in the safety of his home, he strategizes. The glaring issue is his lack of protection. He needs a legion. Priority number 1, summon a team of elite bodyguards. Meanwhile, at the lunar god's palace, a domain ruled by the infamous 10 princesses. Judging by the rumors, I am certain they are all hideous crones. The 4th princess, who sadly lives up to my expectations, demands to know if the king truly spoke those words. Her subordinates confirm it, and she suggests they simply adapt. But the other women at the round table erupt in anger, rejecting her weakness. One in crimson armor argues that his presence at the pavilion signifies a massive discovery. They deduce he must have secured a monarch-ranking creature at the very least. A bald elder trembles, predicting that a cataclysm is approaching, one that could shatter the lunar palace itself. They turn to the 4th princess, questioning her loyalty. She scoffs, asking if they truly believe they can defeat him once he forms a pact with a monarch. Silence reigns. She asks if fear has taken their tongues, until a shadow speaks. It is a man. He declares, the Moon King is not the only one blessed by the moonlight. Following Su Lang's reckless spending at the Academy, rumors ignite across the north. They suspect he is devouring weak souls. To suppress the demons sealed within him, the entire region lives in terror of his potential awakening. Yet, the man they fear so deeply is currently sitting in his room, playing gacha games. He is frantically rolling for new units. Why did the system give me a pig, he cries. He is desperate for a high-ranking warrior even, with the pavilion's resources. His luck is absolute trash. These low-ranking summons are completely useless. He refused to trade his destiny for mere points. He had vowed to forge a pact with the next supreme entity he encountered. Yet this moon in the lake appeared to be a gentle support spirit. Her past was a blank slate, devoid of memories, and absolutely zero records existed within the spiritual archives. It was an anomaly to find a beast absent from the encyclopedia. Still clutching the mysterious invitation he received, he consulted the ancient Lunar Grimoire. The text revealed a terrifying potential. This entity could devour any impact or spiritual fluctuation, storing the raw power within her core. Even more shocking was her age, 13,000 years. This meant she predated the very foundation of the lunar palace. That explained her absence from modern records. She was a myth forgotten by time. A brilliant strategy began to form in his mind. If she remained an enigma, none would dare underestimate her true potential. With her history erased, the world would never know if she possessed the might of a king's guardian. And, for a tamer lacking martial strength, her defensive mastery was the perfect shield. Resolving his heart, he closed his eyes to seal the soul contract. He recalled the sparkling butterfly and reality shifted, transporting him instantly to a mystical lake. Beneath the surface, her reflection shimmered, radiating a divine aura, unlike any high-tier beast he had ever sensed. This marked his second spiritual companion, and he prayed she would be a useful ally. The timing was critical, for the night of the full moon was imminent. Under the crimson glow of that night, a sentinel watched from the shadows, cursing his patrol duty. Intel suggested the Moon King would descend tonight, leaving him skeptical. Yet, as the elite tamer of the Black Moon sect, he had to obey. Stalking the target's sanctuary from a distance, fear gnawed at him. One wrong move could mean instant death the very next second. Meanwhile, our hero drifted back from the spirit realm. The butterfly fluttered with manic energy while the Lake Maiden remained in a dormant slumber. Sensing the chaotic lunar energy outside, he stepped out to investigate what was unfolding. The moment he crossed the threshold, chaos reigned. Students fled in terror, summoning their beasts. His confusion was brief, for he soon realized the full moon's curse had triggered a catastrophe. Suddenly, a deafening blast tore through the air, making the very foundation tremble. He rushed to the window, eyes scanning the horizon where pillars of black smoke rose. A cold smirk touched his lips. At least he wasn't the epicenter of this disaster. But the spy, watching him, lay broken on the ground, mind reeling in disbelief. It was supposed to be a harmless lunar rabbit. Instead, a towering behemoth with a suffocating aura stood before him. The beast turned its gaze to the flank locked onto the intruder and unleashed a devastating strike. The spy barely dodged, watching the attack annihilate a dormitory wing. Terror gripped the campus. Meanwhile, Su Yang sought the source of this madness. Elsewhere, a stampede of beasts surged through the pavilion, halting before a secluded chamber. From within, the white deer bellowed in fury, demanding to know what dared disturb the night, commanding the lesser beasts to retreat. The warden stood there, trembling at the unfolding chaos, while the deer remained restless, wondering if her master would summon her. Back in the heart of the city, the rabbit and the assassin clashed. Vanishing into the shadows, the spy cackled, mocking that the beast actually possessed some backbone. He summoned 2 combat beasts, feigning mercy. He warned the creature to tread lightly, claiming the Moon King's wrath would spell her doom. Yet, the rabbit ignored the threat, charging with reckless abandon. The spy commanded his beasts to intercept their collision, sending shockwaves through the streets. His minions were shredded instantly, but their unique hide absorbed the fatal damage, regenerating in a blink. The assassin analyzed his foe. The rabbit was a powerhouse, but sluggish and lacking intelligence. Since his pets survived, the rabbit wasn't a supreme rank entity. And with the Moon King absent, it proved she had no royal backing. Disengaging, he commanded his beasts to devour the moonlight. They fused, twisting into an abyssal shark with glowing lunar eyes. Agony pierced the tamer's chest, forcing him to halt the absorption ritual. Every tamer knew the risk. Overindulging in lunar essence invited catastrophic self-destruction, yet adrenaline surged through his veins. This was the perfect chance to test his maximum output. Stretching out his hand, he declared that she wasn't the only one capable of a berserker transformation. The shark lunged its strike, once again rupturing the cityscape. Meanwhile, faculty members scrambled to herd students into bunkers. Huddled together, they questioned who possessed the audacity to siege the academy. A student scoffed, calling the attack suicidal, considering the Moon King's presence on these grounds. Suddenly, a figure dashed past them. The teacher moved to intercept until she realized it was the Moon King himself. He spun around, looking wild and untamed, whispering that the true moon was ascending. Strangely armed only with a simple crossbow, he radiated an absolute dominance over the lunar light. It was as if his very physiology resonated with the chaos. As the legends foretold, the eyes of the moon were fixed upon him. In the city ruins, the shark tamer stood triumphant, certain his attack had been fatal. However, the beast convulsed in sheer agony. It recoiled, stunned that the rabbit had not only survived but defied it. As the rabbit's terrified gaze locked onto him, whispers erupted nearby. "It's a nightmare," someone gasped. Bayor couldn't look away, mesmerized by the carnage. "This is suicide," her friend cried out. But Bayor stood firm. "I came to the dormitory to witness true combat." Smack, a sharp blow to the head silenced her. Rubbing the bump on her skull, a sudden wave of déjà vu washed over her. Su Jing analyzed the aura instantly, a mid-tier beast at minimum, but the sheer scale of the creature defied all logic. Both girls gasped in horror. In a blur of motion, the rabbit seized the shark beast by its fins and slammed it into the earth. The Black Moon cultivator sensed his defeat. Desperate, he authorized the forbidden art Moon Devour. The monster ascended, a crushing pressure warping the rabbit's very form. The cultivator grinned. Nothing can survive this. But impossible. The rabbit wasn't breaking. It was devouring the spiritual energy like a bottomless void. A creature that size using martial arts, realization struck cold. Su Jing screamed, "We need to run, now." She tackled Bayor into the dirt, commanding her fox spirit to weave a desperate barrier around them. The sky shattered. A roar like a nuclear detonation ripped through the city, obliterating everything in sight. When the dust settled, the shark was atomized, and the landscape was reduced to a barren wasteland. The barrier crumbled, but they breathed. Bayor's spirit beast materialized, sensing the overwhelming threat. She tackled her tiger, desperate to hide its aura. "Don't provoke it," she hissed, heart pounding in her ears. Yet the monstrous rabbit simply froze. Its blood-red eyes locked onto them heavy with an unreadable intent. No, not them. It was looking at Bayor. Ignoring the others, the beast tore the Black Moon cultivator from the ruins. "Unhand me, you filth," he spat, dignity forgotten. "The Moon King approaches. You dare touch me." Boom! The rabbit smashed him into the concrete, raising a massive fist to end his existence. Bayor flinched forward. "Stay back," Su Jing warned. But Bayor's justice burned bright. "I can't just watch a human be slaughtered." "You fool!" Su Jing hissed. As Bayor steeled herself to step into the domain of death, a voice cut through the chaos. "Halt." A silhouette emerged, radiating supreme confidence. "This battlefield isn't for you," the young master declared. He walked past her, the moonlight bending to his will. "Let the lunar essence converge," he commanded. Glyphs of light danced around him. The girls stared. Was this even a mortal? Su Yang stood fearlessly beneath the beast. His eyes narrowed. The anatomy was wrong. This wasn't a supreme-tier entity. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. 10 minutes prior, he had watched from the shadows. A frontal assault against that monstrosity, pure suicide. Even a 4-star beast vanished in a heartbeat. Testing its rank by touch was a gamble with his life. Retreat seemed wise. But then he noticed it. The killing intent was gone. The beast stood dormant, a high-ranking beast with zero intelligence. Impossible. Unless. He stepped forward, betting everything on one theory. The wretch in the dirt sneered. "You think you saved me. You should be honored to receive my favor." Su Yang ignored the trash, tossing the body aside like a ragdoll. "Dispose of this," he ordered, facing the Titan. He looked up. "A creature driven mad by the lunar cycle cannot maintain higher consciousness," he mused aloud. "Therefore, this is merely a low-tier beast operating on primal instinct." His logic was flawless. He extended a hand aura calm as a still lake. "Are you searching for me?" he whispered. "Is he insane?" Bayor screamed. The rabbit tensed, muscles coiling to launch a devastating strike. Death seemed certain. Su Yang stood his ground, outwardly calm, though sweat trickled down his spine. Plip, a ripple in the water. The killing intent vanished instantly. A spiritual projection embraced him from the void. The air shimmered. The cultivator gasped. That form. Shuru, the legendary ancient spirit from the texts. Su Yang opened his eyes, triumph flashing within. He had gambled with his life and won. The beast was tamed. However, Shuru's spirit was fragile. Another atomic blast would shatter her soul completely. But the mystery was solved. Knowledge was power, and he now held the key to this monster's heart. It was her. Without a lunar body to channel the energy, she was drowning in the moon's overwhelming power. Footsteps thundered. A squad arrived breathless. "Are we too late to assist?" they shouted. The fallen cultivator laughed maniacally. "Assist, you are dust. The Moon King has risen. We are all dead." Terror gripped the crowd. Su Yang smirked. He didn't need to fight the monster. He just needed to control their fear. He demanded to know if the rabbit had come for him, and without hesitation she bowed her head in absolute submission, leaving the crowd completely bewildered. He vowed to grant her the lunar power she so desperately craved. Leaning in close, he whispered that their destiny would resume where it first began. She obeyed his command and vanished into the shadows. Meanwhile, the battered challenger rose from the dust, seething with rage, having been crushed without even witnessing the king's true might. He dared to complain to the Moon King about the rabbit's assault, but the king simply turned his cold gaze, asking if that pitiful display could even be called an attack. The man was struck with awe as the king's eye shifted with the phases of the moon, praying he wouldn't fall under his spell like a moth to a flame. Suddenly, the memories flooded back. The poor soul collapsed, realizing with trembling horror that he had been standing before the true emperor all along. His fighting spirit was utterly extinguished. With no path to victory left, he knew it was time to retreat into the shadows. A mysterious shadow commanded him to maintain his disguise in the northern region, and with a start he jolted awake in the Academy's infirmary. It was a dream transmission, a secret technique used only by the supreme elites, confirming that the nightmare had been all too real. Dread paralyzed him as he wondered how to face the Moon King again. Meanwhile, in the sanctuary of his own room, our protagonist stirred from his slumber, only to find that little rabbit piercing him with her gaze. Startled, he demanded to know why she was invading his personal space. Then it hit him, the blood pact he had sealed with the beast. Once the coast was clear, he returned to the sacred grounds of their first encounter. Since the creature underwent a monstrous transformation under the full moon, letting her roam free was a catastrophe waiting to happen, hence the contract. However, looking at his status window, seeing two mere creatures beneath his rank, felt far from the dignity of a true king. At least the full moon nights would be safer now, but seeing her acting this adorable at his feet, he wondered if his heart was the one in danger. He decided to head for the pavilion, but the moment he opened the door, a stampede of students rushed past, leaving him baffled. He overheard whispers of students attempting to bond with a supreme-grade entity. Panic set in as he frantically searched the web for answers. The news was breaking. The Crescent Moon Spear, a weapon of mythic proportions, had descended into the northern region just today. The artifact was so rebellious that not even the Empress or the 10 Moons had managed to subdue its wild spirit. As he strolled through the campus, hidden eyes watched his every move, the shadows stunned that he was walking directly away from the legendary spear, ignoring the ultimate prize. But our boy had zero intention of courting death. Why risk public humiliation or worse, have his soul obliterated by the weapon's overwhelming spiritual pressure? Besides, he had a much easier conquest right nearby. The white flower lay dormant in her room until the door creaked open. She spun around as he greeted her with a casual hi, asking what brought him there after such a long separation. She asked if he wasn't curious about the Crescent Moon Spear. Suang teased that she must be glued to the net to know that already. She scoffed, claiming she could sense the artifact's resonance without any device worrying about the chaos if it fell into the wrong hands. But he shrugged it off, declaring that having a loyal pet was far more adorable than some rusty old weapon. He pulled a mysterious item from his inventory and tossed it to her. Her eyes widened, asking if it was a supreme-grade delicacy. Close enough. He explained that thanks to the system, he had an infinite supply since the previous user was too stingy to spend a single point. She immediately sealed it in a jar, making him sweat drop, and asked if she was rejecting his offering. She retorted that such treasures were reserved for movie nights or reading novels. He stood there, completely dumbfounded. He turned to leave before he blew her cover, but then he recalled a modern method to stay in touch. He asked to exchange contact info. She agreed, and his phone buzzed instantly, displaying a profile picture of a maiden, with flowing white hair and a majestic purple horn. He froze. That name belonged to the Academy's legendary founder from centuries ago. She was clearly a direct descendant of the bloodline. But the real mystery was whether she kept that divine appearance in human form. She asked if something was wrong. He quickly composed himself, denied it, and promised to return the next day. Hopefully this warrior would shift form soon and stop looking like a blushing deer. 3 days flew by, and the Moon King showed zero interest in the artifact. Meanwhile, the queue for the spear stretched endlessly. A girl slammed her fist on the desk, shouting that it was utter lunacy. She barked at them to sign the death waivers, warning that she wouldn't be responsible if their souls were extinguished. She was exhausted by the weaklings until the black whale stepped forward. She looked up, asking if his condition had stabilized. He nodded, offering to take over the trial so she could finally catch a break. She smirked, agreeing to leave the mess in his hands. She thought to herself that he was dreaming if he believed he could tame the spear. Suddenly, a group of girls swarmed the black whale. He assured them of his recovery, but his mind was elsewhere, awaiting a specific arrival. The dream message had been clear, and he needed to identify that person. Just then, a figure cloaked in midnight black approached. As she handed over the form, a tattoo flashed on her hand. He glanced at it for a split second and froze, trembling to his core. There was no mistake. It was her, the one who was. In a distant realm, curiosity surrounds the beasts descended from the stars. An azure-haired maiden senses the spiritual pressure, admitting the aura is breathtaking, and that witnessing it firsthand has left her awestruck. A golden-haired disciple behind her asks if the truth has finally dawned on her. Any creature not blessed by the moonlight that trespasses here faces instant annihilation. 2 other cultivators scoff, calling it a fool's dream. The Azure Maiden accepts this reality, planning to send pawns from the order, vowing to observe the fools who march toward their doom. As she departs, the other women sneer at her repulsiveness. The golden-haired man intervenes, demanding they suppress their rage and focus on selecting the sacrifices. He reveals a crucial secret: entering with a supreme-rank beast would trigger the spear's rejection. Therefore, only those with lower-ranked beasts or destined favor stand a chance. The redhead, questions if this restriction is why the Lunar King has kept his distance. Suddenly, a voice announces an arrival, causing them to turn with worry etched on their faces. Though the cadets burn with greed, they know the path is paved with death. The disguised girl locks eyes with the Azure Maiden in a silent duel. She then proclaims to the assembly that they will breach the Crescent Moon domain. First warning: the artifact's consciousness is nigh invincible. Second warning: if it awakens and unleashes its wrath, existence itself will be disintegrated. Our protagonist stands amidst the crowd gathering intel. Though the artifact possesses life force, it has no voice. The White Flower Spirit transmits a warning, urging everyone to abandon this suicide mission. But our main character finds it absurd that a dormant item could slaughter anyone who approaches. He questions if the artifact remains in eternal slumber. The White Flower confirms it sleeps unless triggered by an external force. She challenges him to try, but the poor guy questions why he would gamble with his life. If he failed, his reputation would be shattered forever. A plan sparks in his mind, and he rises from the sea of cadets. The disguised girl watches, noting the conspicuous absence of the Lunar King. Touching the mountain's surface, she realizes that if her theory holds, victory is within her grasp. As soon as she seizes the crescent moon, she plans to slaughter every tamer present to silence them. Suddenly, she receives an urgent notification: the Lunar King is approaching fast. Confusion strikes her. Why is he interfering? At this critical moment, the instructor barks at her, demanding she put away the communicator, warning that a moment of distraction in this domain means certain death. The girl stares blankly before bowing her head in a feigned apology. She turns to leave, pretending to abandon the quest for her own safety. But internally, the other girl vows that the moment she obtains the artifact, she will torture her rival to death. The instructor distributes the lifeline crystals to the group. The moment these stones are shattered, the user is warped to safety. She warns that if the crescent moon begins to stir, they must flee immediately or face oblivion. The disguised woman realizes that with the king's arrival, the chessboard has become complicated. Meanwhile, the azure-haired maiden scoffs at the audacity of these weaklings, knowing even Empress Kang Yu failed here. Seeing a gathering of Empress, mere 3-star tamers, she deems the task impossible. However, a disturbance catches her eye. The disguised girl had spun around instantly, sensing a presence, and vanishing behind a tree, terrified by the realization that a master tamer was hiding within the academy. Meanwhile, the brave and the foolish began crossing the barrier. The woman knew she had to act before the Moon King descended. It was then that the azure-haired maiden called out to Elu, the instructor. She insisted that only the Moon King possessed the power to succeed, questioning the slaughter of these weak disciples. Elu countered, asking why she didn't attempt to tame the supreme-level entity herself. A tense silence passed between them and the sea. Azure Maiden realized the instructor was oblivious to the spy. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted as everyone turned. The Moon King had arrived, and whispers of his purpose filled the air. Elu asked if he intended to challenge the beast, while others feared his immense power might accidentally awaken the weapon. But the instructor silenced them, calling them ignorant. If he was here, his victory was already assured. In truth, Su Lang simply wanted to touch the tome to see if it would trigger his release. But the moment his foot grazed the barrier, the system updated instantly. An entity, known as the Silent Libra of supreme rank, manifested. It possessed a rare, terrifying attribute that lesser beasts couldn't even perceive. Su Lang felt a rush of greed at the supreme rank discovery, but immediately recoiled. He froze, and the crowd murmured, wondering why he hesitated at the threshold. He pulled out his phone, leaving them utterly baffled. Elu asked if he faltered, but a smirk played on his lips as he asked why she allowed Black Moon parasites to enter this holy ground. The crowd gasped in shock. He stepped forward, declaring that from this moment the twin moons would rule, and he would personally purge the filth. The spectators stood frozen, reeling from the revelation about the Black Moon and the Bach. The blue-haired maiden sensed a familiar danger. It was likely the very enemy she had dreaded facing. Outside, a wave of anxiety swept through the crowd regarding the students trapped within. But as you mentioned, they possessed the teleport stone, a guaranteed escape route. Our boy, however, hesitated at the threshold, his mind fixated on the Silent Libra. If the Black Cult had deployed such a suppression artifact, it meant they had absolute faith in its terrifying capabilities. The situation was critical. If this were the old cowardly version of himself, he would have fled instantly. Yet ever since his soul transmigrated into this world, something fundamental had shifted within him. With a newfound resolve, he plunged into the abyss without a second thought. The Black Shark members watched nervously, their concern focused on the serpent girl inside. El Hao reasoned that his rush made sense. He was likely sprinting to save everyone. However, the women scoffed, remarking that with his current power level, he would be nothing but cannon fodder. The instructor, however, narrowed his eyes, sensing a strange anomaly in the boy's behavior today. One disciple, brimming with excitement, rushed forward, only to strike the barrier and be blasted back by a violent explosion. The crowd jumped in shock, confused by the sudden backlash. Then the chime of 50 bells heralded the arrival of a new challenger, mocking his futile attempt. From the intricate tattoo on her thighs, the guy instantly recognized an operative of the Twin Moon sect. She demanded to know if they were deaf to His Highness's orders. Honestly, with all those bells, this girl must announce her position with every single step she takes. She declared that as long as she stood guard, the entrance was sealed. The Black Shark leader wondered if she was already aware of the Silent Libra's suppression field inside. Meanwhile, deep within the ruins, the serpent girl prowled impatiently. 10 minutes had passed, yet the legendary spear remained elusive. The weaklings who had dared to enter with her had already been liquidated. At least now, no trash remained to interrupt her grand plan. Suddenly, a ripple in the air caught her attention, a tremendously powerful aura that could not be mistaken. Her eyes flashed with greed. She had finally located the spear. Her heart raced. She hadn't even formed a pact with the Silent Libra for this very reason. She had preserved her spiritual energy for this exact moment. Approaching the artifact, she whispered that the spear was calling out to her. She was certain she was the chosen one, convinced it had rejected the previous Empress candidates, simply because it craved true appreciation. Then, putting on a sickeningly cute facade, she cooed that while she might not be the strongest as a rank 6 tamer, she would worship the weapon like no other. Vowing to cherish it eternally, she lunged to grab the shaft. But the moment her fingers grazed the air, a blinding light erupted and a repulsive force slammed her back. She stared in disbelief. How could she be rejected? In her mind, she was the perfect vessel, so where was the mistake? Nearby, the surviving mob began to stir. One man pointed a trembling finger, recognizing her as the butcher who had slaughtered 20 of his sect members. The memory of his fallen brother fueled his rage. With a roar, the crowd declared they would execute her right there and claim the crescent moon for themselves. But instead of fear, she threw her head back and laughed like a complete maniac, confusing the attackers. She sneered, admitting she was already in a foul mood from the rejection, and now this pile of trash was begging for death. Instantly she summoned her beasts, the ethereal moon-filled mist, and a majestic creature, riding atop a flying whale. The mob froze, realizing too late that these were high-rank calamities. She commanded them to stop their empty posturing and summon their own beasts, or prepare for hell. With a snap of her fingers, the slaughter began. After wiping out every opposing creature, she turned back to the crescent moon, asking if it had witnessed her dominance. Her power was far beyond its comprehension. Yet the spear remained cold and silent. Her temper flared, only to be cut short by a voice calling her trash. From the shadows of the black moon, our boy stepped forward, laughing at her fragile ego. She whipped around, recognizing the so-called Lunar King, and demanded to know why a measly one-star tamer was wandering alone. Even with an emperor-ranked beast, she sneered, his personal strength was pathetic. Su Yang just kept chuckling. He knew she assumed he was powerless, crippled by the Silent Libra's suppression field. If the serpent's theory held true, a lone emperor beast shouldn't be enough to turn the tides. However, the outcome of this battle was already decided, Libra or not. He offered a final warning: break her escape stone and flee before the twin moons arrived. The serpent girl froze, shocked that he knew about the Libra, yet still dared to enter. Hesitation flickered in her eyes. Should she run or kill him? Su Yang walked past her with terrifying calm. All he needed was a single touch of the spear, the legendary weapon, said to have once sliced through a star. Just as his hand extended, a voice shrieked at him to stop. The serpent girl unleashed her fury, sending all her monsters charging at our boy. But suddenly, an invisible wall halted the assault, leaving her dumbfounded. She couldn't fathom how he blocked a lethal attack without summoning a single beast. Internally, our protagonist nearly died of a heart attack. The lake girl might lack offensive power, but thank the heavens her defensive barriers were absolute. The serpent girl snapped, her sanity fraying at the edges, screaming that he was nothing without an emperor beast. She bit her lip until it bled. A dark pentagram ignited beneath her feet as she summoned the devouring demon king. Ominous clouds swirled in the sky and the very ground trembled. Even Su Yang felt a chill of fear. He knew the crescent spear couldn't detect this abomination because of the Libra's interference. A colossal snake materialized, and she hissed that he was about to become snake food. Yet amidst the chaos, he remains frozen like a statue. His expression is an unreadable void, leaving her trembling in confusion at his utter indifference. How can a mere human show no fear before a supreme-ranked calamity? But the truth is far less heroic. He's simply following advice he once saw on the Sephant. Internet, stare down the beast to assert dominance. The enemy loses patience. Enough of these games, she screams. If he refuses to summon his beast, then he chooses death. She commands the monstrosity to strike. The ground shatters as the beast launches itself forward, yet he remains, rooted to the spot, mocking death with his stillness. Knowing the enemy hasn't reached her full potential, he decides to let his defenses handle the heavy lifting. The world dissolves into a cataclysmic explosion. But as the dust settles, a silhouette remains standing. He looks like an untouchable god. But internally, he is thanking all the ancestors that he's still alive. That strike was heavy, but to shatter his absolute defense, she would need power that transcends the heavens. She falls to her knees in despair. Is this the divine protection of the lunar god himself? The protagonist turns his back, tossing a cold remark. Don't be in such a rush to die. Once I claim the crescent lance, I will deal with you properly. She realizes with horror he wasn't ignoring her, because he was weak. He simply deemed the artifact more worthy of his attention. But secretly, he wonders if his shield can actually survive the lance. Realizing she is outmatched, deactivates the silent Libra domain. The seal is broken. The lance senses the cobra's aura and roars to life. Suddenly, a hand seizes the weapon, ripping it from the earth. It's not just a weapon. It has taken a terrifying humanoid form. The bear was a nightmare. But this beast resonates perfectly with the divine weapon. Witnessing the arrival of such overwhelming power, the crowd scatters in pure terror feeling, the spiritual pressure crushing the air. They pray the snake mistress can hold the line, but a warning echoes in his mind. There is barely a 1% chance to survive this strike. He screams internally. This is suicide. How did the enemy plan to endure such a catastrophe? He glances over and sees the truth. She has cowardly hidden herself amongst her minions. The crescent moon avatar lunges. He remains frozen, accepting that escape is impossible. Fate has locked onto him. But before the impact, let us rewind. Minutes earlier at the gate, reports flooded in of an intruder's assault. How did the Academy allow such a monster to breach their defenses? Blonde instructor senses something amiss. Even stranger, the woman outside stands with eerie tranquility. Why is she not fearing for the Lunar King's life? Then the air shifts, a chill runs down her spine. She screams a warning, the crescent moon. It has fully awakened, panic erupts. She commands them to flee, for death is the only reward for lingering here. She also detects a second terrifying aura. Could this be the Emperor's handiwork? Back in the eye of the storm, our protagonist is paralyzed. 3 seconds to impact, 3 seconds until total annihilation. Desperate times call for modern solutions. He whips out his smartphone. With 1 second remaining, he texts the White Flower SOS. The crescent moon descends to claim his soul, and at the precipice of death, he extends his hand. I expected a miracle, but instead a shockwave tears through the entire arena. Spectators are blown back like leaves in a gale. Was this the Emperor's might? No one knows if the Lunar King has perished. The smoke is too thick to penetrate. Moments pass like eternity until the snake mistress begins to rise from the coils of her serpent. Confused, she scans the battlefield. The crescent moon stands dormant again. She searches for the Lunar King's corpse. Was he vaporized by the power she unleashed? A twisted joy overtakes her. She believes she has slain the legend. She cackles. That fool, he was checking his phone at death's door. She screams to the sky, declaring herself the slayer of the great king. Trembling with greed, she turns to claim the crescent moon as her prize, but suddenly the artifact flares with power. She freezes, knowing her exhausted serpent cannot endure another blow. Then a shadow cuts through the mist. Our boy steps forward. Impossible, he not only lives but stands without a single scratch. Her eyes widen as she spots it, a colossal paw resting on his shoulder. What in the heavens is that? The beast towers into the clouds. It defies the supreme rank, but if it were an emperor class, the world would already know its name. Fear shakes her to her core, clutching her crystal. Yet she steels her resolve. It is time to gamble everything. Even if it costs her life, she must witness the Lunar King's true beast. This is the secret. The entire world has bled to uncover the mist parts, revealing the majesty of a supreme-ranked entity, the Cloud Walker, the shadow of the moon. A living reincarnation of the ancient goddess, the enemy collapses in awe. Her mind unable to comprehend, this titan dwarfs her own beast by 5 times. In the hierarchy of power, her serpent was the giant of the black cult, but now it looks like a worm. And the most terrifying fact, a mere one-star tamer is commanding this godlike power. Meanwhile, the protagonist sighs in relief. He never imagined the summons would manifest this largely, and truthfully, he has no clue how it teleported to save him instantly. Furthermore, the woman riding the beast is likely the ancestor herself. The white flower shouts a command. Subjugate the crescent moon now, or I will be sliced in two. He blinks in confusion. Wasn't she invincible? She glares back, assuming his desperate text meant he had a master plan. A sudden realization struck him like a lightning bolt. Direct impact counts as body contact. The system roared to life instantly, unlocking the hidden secrets within the Lunar Book. Do you recall the cliffhanger from the last chapter, the moment Su Lang laid hands on that ancient text? The pages revealed a terrifying truth. This was no ordinary weapon, but a legendary spear in deep slumber. Severed from its sheath, it had slept in eternal sorrow, waking only to find itself unable to speak. But our protagonist's eyes widened. This artifact was of the supreme lunar rank. Armed with the forbidden lore of the Crescent Star Spear, taming this beast suddenly seemed possible. Yet a chilling fact remained. This weapon existed before the Moon Palace itself was even forged. Its history was a mystery lost to time. But suddenly the ancient weapon opened its eyes. The foolish snake girl trembled in sheer terror. Desperate, she summoned her devourer to shield her. But the atmosphere twisted. The spear turned its overwhelming killing intent toward the white flower. Sparks flew as two titanic forces prepared to clash. But Su Lang stepped calmly into the storm. She watched in horror. Was the Lunar King seeking death? A supreme aura would crush him instantly. Unfazed, he commanded the Crescent Star Spear to kneel. At first, it offered him only cold silence. The aura raged on until Su Lang extended his hand, unleashing a ripple of sovereign power. The weapon vibrated with fury until he whispered two forbidden words, Frost Flower. The killing intent vanished instantly. The spear froze, its attention locked solely on him. Su Lang swore a soul oath by the lunar goddess. Within 3 years, he would reunite it with its sheath. A heavy silence fell, followed by a blinding light. The pact was sealed. The spear's physical form dissolved, inviting him into its domain. The snake girl gasped in disbelief. Hydro energy spiraled into a vortex, merging with Su Lang's essence. A perfect fusion. It was undeniable. The legendary Crescent Star Spear had chosen the Lunar King as its true master. Even the white flower stood in awe. This news would shatter the balance of the entire world. Our boy stood tall, defying the heavens, while the antagonist's reality crumbled before her eyes. Countless warriors had failed. A blood contract with such an artifact ends only in death. It bows only to the truly invincible. And in its eyes, Su Lang was a conqueror. The Snake Girl's mission had failed. Now she resolved to die as a warning beacon to the Black Moon cult. With a final scream, she commanded the Devourer to slaughter Su Lang. Big mistake. Su Lang's eyes went cold. You have seen the secrets of the heavens. Now you must perish. Boom. A cataclysmic wave obliterated the beast, carving a massive crater into the mountain. Even Su Lang was shocked by his own devastating power. The impact was absolute. The girl collapsed, coughing up lifeblood. Her beast had been vaporized in a single breath. She realized too late this was no servant. He possessed the bloodline of an emperor rank, but survival instinct kicked in. She had to warn the sect about the spear's awakening. The seal was not yet closed, if she could just put distance between her and this monster. Snap! The teleportation crystal in her hand disintegrated into dust. Hope vanished. It was the butterfly Su Lang's low-rank summon, had snatched her lifeline right under her nose. He smirked. In the presence of giants, who pays attention to a tiny insect, defeated by a mere bug? Despair consumed her as she finally understood why he was the king. The white flower delivered the final mercy. As the girl began to fade into spiritual light, she bowed her head. To fall by the hand of the Lunar King is an honor. Outside, the bell girl cried out as the dungeon doors opened. Her king had returned. He declared the Serpent Saint dead. The barrier fell, leaving the crowd stunned into silence. The Crescent Star Spear, he proclaimed, now belongs to me. His voice echoed like thunder. The lunar lineage trembled at the news. Meanwhile, in the south, the Empress is summoned. Kang Yu burst into the hall, her face a mask of grim tidings. A calamity had struck. The legendary Crescent Star Spear had bowed before the Lunar King, yet she commanded them to hold their fear. She had long known the Lunar King was the chosen vessel of the moon, and divine artifacts always sought such masters. Her companion slammed a fist down, refusing to accept it. That spear was her birthright, as the 4-star sovereign wielding the terrifying might of an emperor-rank beast. The girl waved off her rage as a mere triviality. To truly determine whom the heavens favored, she issued a cold decree. When the moon festival descends, every qualified disciple of this sect must retreat to the desolate northern coast. Elsewhere, a horned demon servant whispered to a cloaked shadow. She reported the arrival of their targets, her voice dripping with malice. She turned to the Anlu seat, daring to ask the forbidden question. Did she fear another humiliating defeat at the hands of the Lunar King? The answer was sharp. In a fair duel, steel against steel victory was certain. She vowed to wash away the shame and restore the Black Moon sect's lost glory. A voice rose from the turbulent sea. The speaker prayed the holy son of the Black Moon possessed the strength to match his arrogance. The blonde beauty known as Fascinating Moon offered a grim warning. Defeat against the Lunar King meant only one thing, eternal servitude. Beside her, Yellow Spring, draped in robes of flowing water, spoke softly. No mortal should ever dare to provoke their gods. He scoffed at their hesitation. The plan was flawless. The time had come to march upon the Moonlight Academy and claim their destiny. They would lie in wait for the festival, and at the Star Mausoleum, the Lunar King would breathe his last. A murmur rose. Was the bloodbath truly starting? Whiteflower shook her head. Mortals did not choose the hour. The festival could only commence when the moon god's power surged to its absolute zenith. Su Lang sighed, cutting her off. He knew the lore by heart. The entire academy buzzed with nothing but rumors of the coming trials. Once the ritual begins, every moon creature tamer must enter the fray. It is a brutal war to decide who stands at the apex of power. The prize is tempting beyond measure, lunar beasts evolving at godlike speeds. Such power turns the battles into a desperate frenzy for survival. The slaughter does not cease until a victor ignites the throne, or until every rival spirit has been crushed into submission. And then there was the boast he had made publicly. He had sworn to crush Empress Kangyu within 3 short years. Our hero clutched his head. Why had his previous self made such a suicidal vow? Only a fool would believe the moon favored him enough to taunt an empress. Whiteflower smirked, dismissing his panic. In 3 years, Kangyu would be nothing more than an insect beneath his heel. She reminded him of the world's truth. A single page from the lunar tome was a treasure men would kill for. Those fragments of ancient power allowed a tamer to bind new beasts, defying the very laws of their spiritual limits. Our boy grinned. If a page was rare, then he was a god, for he held the entire book. He could summon a legion. But a question lingered: how could they hunt for pages he already possessed? Thack times. She silenced his logic with a brutal headbutt. He needed to stop overthinking and focus on the path ahead. Rubbing his forehead, he asked if she could manifest longer. If she could bathe in the moonlight, his cultivation would soar. But her eyes narrowed, sensing a shift in the air. Meanwhile, the force of her earlier strike had sent the poor guy embedded into the stone wall. He peeled himself off the masonry, trembling. His body couldn't handle the casual violence of a supreme-ranked entity. To appease her, he quickly mentally transferred 100 gourmet venison recipes. Suddenly, the system flashed with opponent data. First was Ba Yu, a royal princess carrying the feral bloodline of the Half-Tiger clan. Our hero blinked. He had assumed she was a mere cat girl, not a predator. Next was Bai Ya, the 4th princess of the Bai Ye Empire, hailing from the strongest human lineage. Yinan forwarded the dossiers directly to Whiteflower's spiritual consciousness. The targets had been marked. She claimed the first prey, leaving the second for him. "Take care of them," she said. The phrase sent a chill down his spine. Did she mean defeat or execution? Elsewhere, the defeated rival sulked in isolation. The Lunar King had stolen the spear and with it her pride. She had been utterly outclassed. Her companion urged her to let go of the grudge. Brooding would solve nothing. They needed to gather at the announcement grounds immediately. Whiteflower watched from the shadows, eyes locked on the girl from the clan of saints. She smelled delicious like spiritual nectar, but her wits seemed dull. A cold drop of rain splashed against her nose. Water dampened her fiery spirit. She turned to retreat, before the downpour sapped her strength. But her instincts screamed a warning. The rain was not natural. A massive water dragon was tearing through the air, heading straight for her. Boom times. The beast slammed into the earth, obliterating the path where the girl stood in a chaotic explosion of steam and debris. A knight emerged from the mist, grinning. He had located one of the 5 supreme targets. He gave the child a cold ultimatum: 5 seconds to summon or die. He claimed to despise ambush tactics against summoners. Yet the insignia on his shoulder betrayed his arrogance. He was a 7-star tamer. The threat was catastrophic. His beast was an emperor-level monster, leaking an aura of pure destruction. Meanwhile, Ba Yu stepped onto her porch, frowning at the sudden storm. Why were they being summoned to the training grounds in such foul weather? A movement caught her eye. A delicate butterfly fluttered through the rain, landing softly on her finger, causing her cheeks to flush with wonder. Her servant scoffed, warning her not to sully her royal hands with such low-level trash. "Nonsense," she snapped back. "Even a god like the Lunar King surely finds joy in the small things." But in that frozen moment, suddenly, a shadow intrudes upon their peace, asking if they dare speak of the Lunar King and demanding to join the circle. The atmosphere tightens. It is the antelope seat seeking a duel of dominance, yet the servants remain blind to the danger before them. Beor shows no mercy. With eyes full of disdain, she calls the intruder a hideous wretch and orders her to vanish immediately. The insult strikes deep. Though the girl endures the humiliation, the rage burning within her threatens to consume everything. The servants gasp in horror, recognizing the gazelle of the evil eye, while Beor senses the dark aura of the Black Moon cult. Meanwhile, tension breeds at the academy training grounds as whispers spread about the absence of Beor and Baya. Elu silences the crowd, her voice commanding absolute authority for the revelation she is about to unveil. The 1,000-year silence is broken. Today marks the beginning of the Moon God's festival, where tamers shall battle for divine glory. A chilling voice pierces the air, declaring that this is not a tournament but a massacre where only the last survivor remains. The sole victor shall ascend as the true lunar god of this era, a title forged in blood and sacrifice. Elu screams for everyone to run, but calamity strikes faster than sound. A devastating explosion rips through the academy. She realizes with horror that it was a 7-star killing formation, and fear grips her heart for the fate of her students. But as the dust settles, a miracle is revealed. Every single student stands unharmed, leaving the blonde attacker utterly baffled. The enemy spirit beast trembles, realizing their ultimate attack was completely nullified by an overwhelming force. She shudders at the thought. Only the legendary Lunar King could possess the power to stop such destruction effortlessly. He had not fled. He was merely biding his time. His divine lake barrier absorbed the blow, draining 40% of its energy to protect the innocent. Yet Su Yang feels a familiar heat rising in his chest. It has been an eternity since he last felt such scorching rage. The heavens tear apart as lightning crashes down. A second supreme rank beast descends, signaling an emperor-level threat. The blonde summoner screams at her ally, furious that his reckless power nearly wiped out their own objectives. But the yellow beast scoffs with arrogance, declaring that a king does not concern himself with the lives of insignificant insects. The girl snaps back, reminding him they are in Twin Moon's territory, and their mission is strictly to stall the vice presidents. Elu's eyes widen in recognition. She identifies the blonde as the summoner of the fascinating moon sect from 5 years ago. Why would an esteemed guest from the past launch such a treacherous assault? The yellow beast simply confirms her fears. With a cold sneer, the enemy offers a final ultimatum. Elu has 1 minute to evacuate the students before the slaughter begins. Once that time expires, mercy will be a forgotten concept, and anyone remaining will face total annihilation. Steps echo through the chaos as the Lunar King approaches, phone in hand, his aura calm yet suffocatingly heavy. He questions their audacity to attack his domain without warning, wondering what gave them the confidence to think they would leave alive. In a flash of spiritual energy, he summons the Crescent Star Spear. The legendary weapon radiates a supreme pressure that shakes the earth. One glance is all it takes. With the spear in his grip, he charges forward, transforming into a blur of lethal intent. Elu freezes in terror, realizing the spear's bloodlust is out of control. It can no longer distinguish between ally and enemy. If this continues, the entire academy will be reduced to ash. The sky ignites with blinding light as power explodes. The shockwave sweeps through the city. When the smoke finally clears, Elu lies on the ground, gasping for breath, barely alive. The Lunar King's protection saved her from the brink of death, but the two enemies caught in the center faced the full wrath. Yet the fascinating Moon Disciple stands. She warns that this weapon is nothing compared to the Emperor who is coming for his head. The yellow beast begins to glow with ominous energy, and the girl summons a galaxy of planetary projections for a final strike. The Crescent Star Spear opens its eyes once more. Su Yang realizes he is now standing at the precipice of true danger. Having deflected 2 catastrophic attacks, his divine lake barrier is critical, holding only 4% of its defensive power. He knows with certainty if this next attack connects, the barrier will shatter, and everything behind him will be erased. Worse yet, his control over the spear is slipping. The weapon yearns to consume every living soul in its path. With no other choice, the Crescent Spear unleashes a storm of slashes. The enemies realize too late that their doom is sealed. The impact is cataclysmic. The blast wave engulfs the entire city, the energy so potent it rains down even on the distant students. A student points to the sky in trembling awe, asking why the heavens now display the terrifying omen of 2 moons. A voice cries out in despair. It is sheer madness to summon a full moon manifestation for a mere 5 minutes of power. Another enemy appears, legs trembling, realizing that they have just made a fatal miscalculation in their strategy. The blonde apologizes for her instinct to survive, but her friend reveals the grim truth: they must now fight the Lunar King at his absolute peak. Suddenly, terror strikes. A colossus manifests a rabbit of nightmares. She sensed it immediately. The suffocating aura of a supreme rank beast. But the atmosphere twisted. Her friend noticed the Crescent Spear. its very form warping, pulsating with a dark new evolution. How could they possibly survive a war on two fronts? But then, the spear lashes out, cleaving the massive beast in twain with a single brutal strike. Utter chaos. The duo stood, paralyzed minds reeling. Why would the frenzied spear turn on its own ally? But before they could breathe, its bloodlust turned toward them. Meanwhile, beyond the academy walls, the servant ranks were in disarray, rage and panic boiling over. The antelope gritted her teeth, her stamina fading fast. Desperate, she summoned the ultimate horror, the gazelle of the evil eye. A barrage of annihilation rained down. Their defenses were like paper. Powerless against the light, every summoned guardian was obliterated in an instant. Baya played her trump card. Heed my call. The sky darkened as the majestic eagle dragon materialized, towering over the battlefield. The antelope scoffed. Too slow for a supreme summoning. A magnificent beast, yes, but it shattered like glass under her overwhelming might. In a panic, the servant summoned a tiger, screaming for her mistress to run. But the antelope looked down with cold eyes. Is this the limit of your pathetic struggle? The gazelle charged its energy once more. And this time, Tomb had truly arrived for the loyal servants. The shockwave was merciless. Even the fleeing girl was swatted down like a fly body broken against the earth. She struggled to rise, despair consuming her. Death stared her in the face. But as the beast moved to crush our hero's fragile butterfly, a miracle occurred. The tiny creature began to ascend. It stood defiant against a titan. Shockingly, the evil gazelle recoiled in fear. The girl's legs gave out, trembling at the impossible sight. When did this radiant being arrive? Baya watched mind blank, unable to comprehend why the mighty antelope was shrinking back from a mere butterfly. It defied all logic, yet that shimmering light had become their absolute salvation. Now run, the antelope collapsed, cursing her fate. Forgive me. I cannot fulfill the mission, she gasped, defeated by an insect. But the nightmare wasn't over. Baya and Su Jing lay helpless. Above them, the water creature began a chilling countdown to their execution. White Flower watched from the shadows. Is the water monarch lurking here? If that monster appeared, things would get complicated. The executor sneered. Time's up, little ones. Such a pity for your potential to rot here. A vortex swirled in his palm. In a heartbeat, the waters rushed to claim them, until soft clouds suddenly materialized beneath them. They were lifted toward the heavens. The night froze. I know no technique like this. An anomaly has entered the board. They spun around. And there she was, White Flower, radiating elegance, floating effortlessly on her own celestial cloud. Why does a supreme being save us? Su Jing stammered. She sighed. Don't flatter yourselves. I have a blood debt to the Lunar King. I keep my promises. The knight stepped forward, aura flaring. I am the Emperor of Autumn. A supreme rank existence. White Flower glanced away, bored. Hey, can that little brat Dangantu come out to play instead? The Emperor bristled at the insult. He does not waste time on insects. He only descends to crush those of the highest caliber. Perfect, she smirked, eyes glinting. My philosophy exactly: bully the weak and run like hell from the strong. Silence. He unleashed a slap of pure energy. Simultaneously, a prison of water erupted from the earth. The girl was swallowed by the torrent. But wait, flash. She materialized above the waves, cloaked in a majestic purple aura. The autumn night narrowed his eyes. A spirit form, a bodiless entity like myself. Then I shall use times technique. A vortex tore open the sky, dragging her upward. Boom, the heavens detonated. He smirked, certain her spark had been extinguished. But his smirk vanished. Something was wrong. High above. And why were there times two? Times moons hanging in the abyss. Someone tampered with the laws of nature. In this lunar domain, he was outmatched. He breathed a sigh of relief, thinking he'd luckily killed her fast. I'll need answers, he muttered. Who would dare commit such a reckless act against the heavens? Going somewhere, a voice chilled his spine. A long-haired goddess emerged. Ladies and gentlemen, the true times apex predator had arrived. White Flower scoffed. I didn't even need the full moon to end you. The knight recoiled, terror seizing his heart. What did you say? Before he could blink, agony. He looked down. A massive crystalline horn had impaled him, piercing his very soul. His mind shattered. This power, it transcends the supreme realm. Impossible. This was a force of nature. Only one lineage possesses such might. A direct descendant of an emperor. Even a supreme being was nothing before her. White Flower whispered coldly, be grateful. I didn't even want to cheat with the moon's power. His form began to crumble. Master, beware. He screamed into the void, fading into mist before their very eyes. White Flower surveyed the wreckage. Did I make too much noise? The devastation stretched as far as the eye could see. His boss must be lurking nearby. She hesitated, plotting her next move. But first, let's rewind time. 3 minutes ago. The training grounds. The crescent star hung ominous in the sky, and the disciples lay broken, utterly defeated. The maiden showed no mercy, unleashing a torrent of destruction, but suddenly a chill ran down her spine. The celestial rabbit she had cleaved in two was defying death itself, its form stitching back together. So long as the pale moonlight bathed its fur, its regeneration was godlike, instant, and endless. However, the falling star surged forward like a meteor determined to end this. But this time, the beast raised its defenses. Their collision triggered cataclysmic shockwaves that pulverized the landscape, leaving nothing but dust in their wake. Meanwhile, shadows moved in the distance. The disciples of the Black Moon sect were desperately concealing their presence from the Twin Moon Order. When the girl voiced her doubts, her leader scoffed. "Do not underestimate my prowess," he hissed. He claimed to possess vital intel on a sleeper agent, insisting their position was impenetrable. That was until a deafening blast shattered their silence. The titanic battle between the two monstrosities had crashed right onto their doorstep. Panic set in. Had the Lunar King seen through their stealth techniques? The leader commanded them to hold their nerve, praying it was mere coincidence. But then the rabbit's maw yawned open, and from within its very gullet, the king stepped forth. Terror paralyzed the onlookers. Su Liang wasted no time, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Black Moon Sect Spring Path, what business do you have here?" The water maiden trembled, her face draining of color. Against the Lunar King, empowered by the full moon, she was nothing more than a moth before a flame. The king spoke calmly, claiming he had merely been eavesdropping and harbored no ill will toward her. However, the opposing leader roared in defiance, announcing his intent to wage total war. Su Liang simply gazed at him with cold indifference. "War? On what grounds do you make such a claim?" The man spat his ultimatum. The moment the festival commenced, he would burn Su Liang's entire legacy to ashes. This vendetta was forged 3 years ago, when the Black Moon sect's stronghold was obliterated. The culprit, none other than the Lunar King, who had viewed them with that same piercing arrogance. Eyes that looked down upon them not as men but as insignificant insects. This, he declared, was the Lunar King's true twisted nature. Su Liang, however, furrowed his brow. He held no memory of his predecessor committing such an atrocity, but with the rampaging crescent star to subdue, he had no time for history lessons. He sighed, dismissing the grudge. "Though watching an ant struggle is tiresome, I shall grant you a singular opportunity. But make no mistake, you will pay a heavy price for your insolence. I will unleash the crescent star upon you. Survive its wrath, and I shall grant you one request." With a snap of his fingers, he summoned the celestial beast, and it lunged with feral hunger. Another catastrophic explosion engulfed the battlefield. 10 minutes of hell later, they lay broken upon the scorched earth, gasping that the entity's power was absolute. The water maiden, clutching her wounds, whispered that it was wisest to steer clear of the Twin Moon Order. After witnessing the godlike might Su Liang displayed, resistance was futile. It wouldn't stand a ghost of a chance. Their only option was to hunt fresh beasts elsewhere. Meanwhile, Su Liang surveyed the ruin, realizing the academy had been reduced to rubble. Yet a question gnawed at him: how had the falling star annihilated so many supreme rank 7-star monstrosities? Its power was illogical, dominating those ancient beasts, without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, the sound of weeping broke his concentration. A figure hurled herself at the dom. "Young lord, it was White Moon wailing about her duel with a 7-star master. I was nearly turned into pulp," she sobbed. "It was terrifying. If not for my genius, the whole academy would be underwater." Then she froze, realizing she had forgotten to shift back into her deer form, but Su Liang gently patted her head. "You did well." He needed her to accompany him to the Twin Moon Order to handle urgent business. Her mind raced. Would she meet his parents? A blush crept up her neck as she grew flustered. "Isn't this moving too fast?" she thought. Despite the embarrassment of such a sudden progression, she was secretly delighted. The scene shifts to the majestic floating island of the Twin Moon Order. Far below, Kang Yu's disciples gazed up, admitting it was truly awe-inspiring. But Xiao Lu snapped them back to reality. "Focus. We are here for one reason: the great emperor's legacy hidden within the Twin Moon sect. Come hell or high water, they vowed to plunder every last artifact." Yet upon arrival, confusion struck. This wasn't a sect. It was a sprawling metropolis. She couldn't help but wonder how much gold these scoundrels raked in daily. Meanwhile, a familiar figure casually munched on a meat skewer nearby. Su Liang asked what a southern tamer was doing on his turf. Whiteflower's eyes narrowed in recognition. "Master, that is Xiao Lu. We must be vigilant. She is a devotee of Kang Yu, your sworn rival, and spreads slander about you." Or perhaps this was the perfect opportunity to corner her and force an apology. Su Liang deadpanned. Was his companion seriously trying to fight someone over internet? Flame wars. He told her to drop it and asked if she had other desires. She paused, her eyes locking onto a flashy banner for a gluttony challenge. Her eyes sparkled. She had to enter. Su Liang felt a wave of secondhand embarrassment. But, given her loyalty in battle, how could he refuse? Just then, the organizer bellowed that registration was nearly closed. Suddenly, Xiao Lu strutted forward, slamming her name on the list. She had her eyes on the rewards, and wasn't leaving empty-handed. Hearing this, Su Liang's ears perked up. The Grand Prize Pure Essence Fluid, the runner-up prize, a measly box of face masks. Su Liang stood aghast at the massive gap in value, and he instantly recognized the priceless nature of this essence. Yet a shadow of doubt clouded his mind. Why offer such a divine treasure in a mere contest? She revealed the hidden truth. This tournament was actually a calculated act of vengeance against a rival organization from the past. The feud ignited when they began hoarding rare butterfly-type spirit beasts, sparking a fierce rivalry between the two great sects. As usual, he was left in the dark, the fragmented memories of his predecessor swirling in a chaotic mess within his mind. Still, the allure of the reward was undeniable. With other powerful beasts present, he could finally unveil the sealed pages of his grimoire. The hostess stepped forward, her voice ringing out to welcome every challenger brave enough to participate in this trial. However, a wave of hesitation swept through the crowd. None dared to lightly challenge the overwhelming might of Choju. She announced the rules: 2 beasts per summoner. But be warned, only supreme-tier creatures could withstand the scorching spiritual heat. As the dishes were unveiled, the overwhelming aroma alone knocked the weaker beasts unconscious before they could even take a bite. While White Flower drooled with anticipation, Shu scoffed at her friends, radiating the arrogance of someone assured of absolute victory. With a flourish, she summoned a pink butterfly. Even within the Twin Moon Order, a supreme rank entity like this was a rare jewel. Her gaze drifted to our hero and she sneered. Why would he dare bring a mere mid-rank beast to a battlefield of elites? She didn't realize that overconsumption would lead to certain death. Meanwhile, Swang sensed the blazing determination burning in her eyes. He needed to summon a second ally, but the Crescent Star was off limits. If he was cornered like this, he would have to get creative. The girl opposite him remained oblivious, unaware she was standing before a legend. The announcer then declared the start of the duel. 10 minutes. The command echoed and the pink butterfly lunged, swallowing the first essence in a single greedy gulp. While lesser creatures collapsed in agony, White Flower munched away with the calm demeanor of a true glutton. Shu narrowed her eyes. Could that be a supreme rank? No, she dismissed the thought. This fool had zero chance of claiming the throne. 3 minutes in the arena was littered with fallen beasts. Even her butterfly reached its limit after consuming 30 pieces. She commanded it to push forward, but the poor spirit beast trembled clearly, reaching the brink of its physical endurance. She glanced over, stunned. White Flower was still eating. The boy smirked, advising her to stop forcing the inevitable. Shu couldn't comprehend it. How did that creature show no fatigue? To win, she needed the combined might of 2 supreme beasts. Her spiritual energy couldn't sustain both for long, but her desire for the Emperor essence burned hotter than her limits. Desperate, she unleashed the Green Moon Spirit. The entity materialized on her back, snatching the dish and devouring it wildly. The gluttony was terrifying. Even White Flower warned that eating with such reckless abandon would lead to self-destruction. Shu gritted her teeth, barely maintaining the summon, but her victory seemed assured. 72 plates against a mere 34. But our boy's eyes flashed. The moment of truth had arrived. He invoked the technique Moon in the Lake. A spiritual vortex swirled above the dish, leaving the crowd gasping. In a blink, every scrap of food vanished into the void. Poor Choju could only stare in disbelief at the impossible feat. The announcer's voice boomed. The winners had been decided. The arrogant girl crumbled in defeat, her pride shattered. Meanwhile, the announcer beckoned Swang to follow her for the prize. Was it a trap? No. Her eyes held a spark of recognition. She knew exactly who stood before her, the Lunar King. She handed over the essence, noting that his white deer pet had already betrayed his identity to the watchful elites. In his hands lay the essence of a mythical rarity. All he needed to do was make contact and consume the elixir within. As the energy surged, the girl watched in awe. He unleashed the majestic aura of an Emperor-class sky type, the pink butterfly. 50 capture attempts unlocked instantly. Now simply witnessing a lunar creature would allow him to shatter the seal on the icon. He had spent precious time pampering White Flower, but seeing this massive power-up, every second had been worth it. He then marched toward the Twin Moon Sect's headquarters. The sheer scale of the architecture left him breathless. This was the true weight of the Lunar King title. Disciples bowed as he passed, leading him straight to a shimmering portal. Crossing the threshold, reality shifted. Above him, suspended in the sky, sat a maiden upon a blossoming moon White Flower. His instincts screamed a supreme being. Swang whispered that she was the absolute ruler of the entire northern region, the curved moon of the blue sea. She turned her gaze, piercing his soul, noting that the Lunar King had finally returned. She chided him gently. The grand festival had been stalled for 3 long years, all due to his arrogant reply to Ku. Such disrespect didn't sit well with the ancient elders. Once again, our boy cursed the chaotic legacy left by that damnable predecessor. But excuses were useless. He declared he had arrived precisely because the lunar festival was on the verge of commencing. However, one question burned in his mind. How do I defeat the emperors? She tilted her head, amused by his sudden ambition. Though he possesses strength, he hesitates, warning that the Black Moon cult will surely hunt him down. But she cuts him off, scoffing that such trifling fears are beneath him. He knows the truth. His previous victory was mere luck, gifted by the sudden appearance of a full moon. A relic manifests before him, the signet of the northern moon god. The moment he dons this ring, the true festival shall commence. The ring pulses against his skin, a heartbeat of ancient power. Realizing she has bet everything on him, he accepts his inescapable fate. Instantly, the world dissolves into a swirling galaxy of starlight. The representative is chosen, but the system abruptly intervenes with a warning. It declares that thanks to the moon tome, he can shroud his true self in a veil of mystery during the festival. Su Liang questions his location, discovering he can alter his very essence, name, form, and even gender. Yet his rank remains exposed. To survive, he must summon an entity unknown to this world. He selects the legend, the curved moon of the blue sea. Space warps once more, depositing him in a grand hall adorned with 3 majestic thrones. A figure emerges from the shadows, proclaiming that the moon shall never set and eternal night is nigh. She claims her seat. Another beauty enters eyes, lighting up at the sight of Miss Shogetsu, trembling with excitement for the festival. Shogetsu remains cold, while a petite figure approaches the final chair, dragging her feet in exhaustion. The pink-haired noble welcomes the Queen of the West after their long separation. The little one struggles up the steps, collapsing into slumber the moment she claims her throne. Suddenly, an uninvited guest arrives, her eyes scanning for a man but finding only women, her temper flaring. Shogetsu demands to know why an impure ice spirit dares to taint the sanctity of the moon festival. The intruder retorts that she too holds a moon god relic, granting her the divine right to stand here. Now only the northern seat remains empty. The Ice Queen demands to know why the final king delays. They speak of the Lunar King, a brat, who caused chaos 4 years ago, waiting for his return. The atmosphere shifts as our protagonist makes his entrance, pulling a shocking stunt. Confusion ripples through the hall. This is not the Lunar King they remember. Su Liang has transformed into a stunning beauty radiating an otherworldly aura. Or perhaps, has the entity taken over? He ascends the throne, leaving the others bewildered. Shogetsu deduces that the relic must have chosen a new vessel, one unconnected to the past. She is perplexed, unable to read the truth of his soul. Su Liang realizes the Moontome's authority crushes the relic's influence, allowing this perfect deception. They marvel that 10,000 years have passed since the last gathering of the kings. A divine voice thunders. Before the final war, the moon gods demand entertainment. Each king must select a champion. The rulers are forbidden from combat until their proxies fall. Breaking this law means total erasure, and supreme-level entities are strictly banned from the arena. The command is given. Reveal your champions, and let the games begin. Su Liang panics. Summoning a familiar beast from the Twin Moon Order would shatter his disguise instantly. All that effort to become a goddess would be wasted if he is exposed now. The Ice Queen sneers, regretting she must reveal her trump card so soon. She summons the Crimson Butterfly. A terrifying beast of emperor rank, Su Liang knows she hides even greater power in reserve. Not to be outdone, Shogetsu of the Central Region calls forth the Fallen Full Moon, another emperor-class nightmare. The sleepy representative of the West also summons an emperor, leaving only Su Liang and the pink-haired girl. The voice warns 1 minute remains before disqualification. Tension chokes the air. He needs a creature of the North, yet his arsenal is empty of such specific power. Desperate, he recalls the White Flower and gambles on the Lunar Tome to forge a miracle. He sacrifices 100 offerings, pouring his resources into the void. The system responds. An ancestral emperor entity answers his call, Cloud in Dreams. He desperately buys her lore, watching his wealth vanish. With 5 seconds left, the contract is sealed and the legend awakens. Amidst the festival's roar, the tension spiked between him and the crimson-haired Kang Yu. Both summoned their energy, stretching out their hands. The heavens proclaimed the northern champion Cloud in Dreams, a majestic emperor-ranked entity. But Kang Yu narrowed her eyes in suspicion. She had anticipated a beast from the Twin Moon Order. Su Ong, however, had his gaze fixed on a different mystery. Kang Yu had summoned an entity echoing the legendary sheath of Frost Flower. The ancient prefixes were Identical, suggesting this was exactly the key the Crescent Star sought. With the 5 champions now selected, the Grand Moon Festival could finally commence. Spatial magic flared, warping them away. At that exact instant, the slumbering maiden awakened with a start. She demanded to know how he commanded cloud and dreams. It was an impossibility, just as she asked who. He truly was our protagonist, vanished into thin air. Reappearing within the Twin Moon Order, the Lord of the Blue Sea Moon summoned him immediately. Did you feel that shift? She asked. The festival had opened its maw. The brutal war for the throne had officially arrived. He acknowledged the weight of destiny, vowing to prepare. As he turned to leave, her parting words hung heavy. When we meet again, the festival will be history. He only hoped his spirit contract would be fulfilled by then. What unsettled her was his request to annihilate the Black Moon sect. The boy seemed terrified of his own dormant power, questioning the lunar tome and trembling before the emperors. It was a sign his sealed memories were finally clawing their way back to the surface. She watched, eager for the chaos. Suddenly, a crimson pillar pierced the heavens. The moon itself bled into a terrifying shade of red. Every moon shard in the city glowed with malevolent light. Had the apocalypse arrived? A servant rushed to Kang Yu with news of the festival's start, but the news shattered her composure. Impossible, she breathed. If the moon had truly chosen that boy, her existence was rendered meaningless. The servant stammered, asking if the disciple should withdraw from the competition. No, she commanded, her eyes hardening. Plans had changed. Suspend all internal clan rivalries immediately. Dispatch our 5 strongest elites to the northern region. She would go herself. She had to witness the truth. She needed to confront whatever scheme the Lunar King was weaving. A trembling subordinate dared to question the order. Is this wise mistress? Sending our elites during a full moon is a death sentence. It is practically a sacrifice. Only Emperor-ranked beings can survive that battlefield. But the command was absolute. Up north, our hero rode his colossal deer beast. The academy swarmed with Emperor-ranked monsters, their aura spiraling completely out of control. Voices cried out. The Lunar King had returned. King He of the academy stepped forward, eyes burning with righteous fury. Kang Yu has declared war on us. Justice must be served. He intercepted the signal. Kang Yu's 5 elites were en route. Our protagonist saw through the ruse immediately. This declaration was merely a test of his resolve. Fear not, he calmed her. The Twin Moon Order will handle the vanguard. Exhausted, he demanded the event schedule, needing to recover his strength. Hours bled away. While his beasts slumbered peacefully, the boy analyzed the scroll eyes, scanning for threats. This festival was a death trap, yet the rewards were god tier. The spiritual and fallen moon sects were allies likely playing for sport. The minor sects were trash, unworthy of concern. But the 5-leaf sect, they were a towering mountain. Their champion Xiao Ju commanded 2 supreme-ranked beasts, a power level that defied logic. Considering the true saints were even more terrifying, he knew even the Crescent Star might fall. The weight of the world crushed down on our hero's shoulders. He possessed 3 powerhouse creatures, far from weak, but this was different. Facing a horde of emperors simultaneously, that was suicide. Survival until the festival's end seemed like a distant dream. He had one gamble left: amplify White Flower's power, using a fragment of the rare lunar obsidian. He watched her sleeping form, puzzled by the headpiece she wore at night. To ensure her comfort, he gently unclasped it. Clearly a metamorphosis was beginning. Oblivious to the shift, he yawned, announcing his intent to sleep. Time passed. He jolted awake in the dead of night, confusion clouding his mind. What had disturbed his slumber? Holy heavens! She had transformed. The radiance was blinding, a danger to his very soul, and everyone nearby. The spiritual pressure was crushing him. His blood boiled, and he felt on the precipice of a violent explosion. Was this because he removed the seal? If she awoke and caught him in this compromised state, he was a dead man. Yet, like a moth to a flame, he leaned closer, ignoring his instincts. Slowly, her eyelashes fluttered. The beast was waking up. Her eyes snapped open, clouded with confusion at the intimacy. Suong froze, wearing an expression of pure idiocy. He stammered gibberish, desperate to explain the misunderstanding, but the poor girl stared blankly, utterly lost in the chaos. The air crackled with awkward tension as he tried to salvage the situation, but the damage was already done. That is when she demands to know where her precious necklace has gone. He realizes the jig is up. She knows, and he is absolutely doomed, so he places it back on the table with trembling hands. She clearly did not appreciate his thievery, but instead of exploding, she reacts with a terrifyingly calm demeanor. She lies back down, and he tentatively asks if she is furious that he removed the artifact. She simply replies that she will just put it back on when she rises, so there is no need for anger. However, what she fails to grasp is why he is sweating bullets. Did something catastrophic happen? He stammers that he is just a little mortified by the current situation. She remains baffled, demanding to know exactly why. He is so embarrassed. Our boy realizes she spent 99% of her existence as a wild beast, so the concept of modesty and covering one's body is completely foreign to her. She commands him to answer immediately, because the suspense is killing her. He confesses that she was always lovely, but her human form was so breathtakingly stunning that he struggled to contain his baser instincts. And then the realization hit her like a lightning bolt. Her face erupts into 50 shades of red, and she becomes a stuttering mess. But we cut away to the next morning. The golden sun caresses her face as she awakens from her slumber. Our boy tells her it is time to rise and shine. Somehow, she has already adapted to this new life, yet confusion lingers in her eyes. She points out that he always seemed to be walking on eggshells, vibrating with tension whenever he saw her, but today his aura is completely relaxed. Our boy smiles, admitting she is sharp. Until now, he had been wearing the mask of the Lunar King, paralyzed by the terror of being exposed as a fraud. But last night brought a revelation, and he thanks her, claiming it was her presence that steeled his resolve. The poor girl still looks completely dumbfounded, but he declares it is time for them to prepare for the legendary Moon God Festival. He may have finally devised a strategy to crush the Emperor. She is just thrilled to go on an outing, so that is motivation enough. He gently suggests she might want to put on some clothes first. High atop the mountain peak, he turns to ask her a critical question. He points to the necklace resting on her collarbone and asks if that artifact is the key to her transformation. After all, when he removed it, her reaction was intense. She shakes her head, explaining it is merely a keepsake from her mother. That is why she guards it with her life. The transformation was triggered by the approaching full moon, a celestial event that had nothing to do with the jewelry. The poor guy is left scratching his head in confusion. She then asks why they climbed so high and how exactly he plans to defeat a tyrant like the Emperor. He gestures to the view, explaining they stand atop the event's highest tower, the perfect vantage point to overlook the elimination zone, and this is the stage where he will challenge the Emperor. She nods but points out a small flaw. There is no Emperor here. Yet so, how will he train? He smirks, declaring he will initiate a trial, for he is the lunar god who communes with the heavens. He summons a shimmering butterfly, which immediately flutters toward the horizon. She looks unimpressed by this so-called test. He summoned a trash-tier creature, but he tells her to observe closely. Suddenly, a swarm of butterflies begins to congregate. This is the shimmering butterfly's hidden ability. It acts as a beacon to attract its kin. This means he can manifest a chaotic storm of wings, making it impossible to distinguish the original. White Flower leans in to get a better view. In a flash, an explosion of light blinds them, and the creatures vanish into his inventory. She spins around, demanding to know what sort of sorcery that was. He winks, calling it a trade secret until the night of the full moon. She puffs up her cheeks in anger because this man dares to keep secrets from her. She declares that if he continues this charade, he is banned from sleeping next to her. But, at that precise moment, the system notification explodes in his vision. He has successfully forged contracts with multiple entities. He had signed soul bonds with anywhere from 1 to 1,000 and 7 shimmering butterflies. He realizes this is the true broken power of the Lunar Tome. With this cheat-like ability, he knows he has barely scratched the surface of his potential strength, and if he truly is the chosen one, perhaps a miracle will force the gods to descend. Meanwhile, White Flower is sulking in the corner until a voice cuts through the air, complaining about the stench of this backwater location. Observing from above, she notes that the lack of a 3-star tamer is pathetic. These are the elite kunoichi, sent by Empress Kang Yu to purge the weak. The girl in the red hood scolds her partner, reminding her not to question the Empress's divine will, for she surely has a master plan for sending them to this garbage dump. The blonde sighs, lamenting the hassle. But suddenly she freezes as she feels a gaze bore into her soul. The poor girl begins to tremble uncontrollably. She sensed a creature with a cultivation level far superior to her own, watching her every move. While she loses her nerve, the other redhead confirms the sensation. This was not an enemy they could hope to defeat. It was likely the apex predator of this region, and they needed to avoid provoking it at all costs. Meanwhile, White Flower is bored to tears atop the tower. Our boy, however, is impressed that Kang Yu mobilized so many elites with supreme-level beasts. White Flower explains he is clueless about how rare this event truly is, which is why the Empress is going all in. He notices her sour mood and asks if she is still holding a grudge. She dramatically turns her face away, and he suggests a truce. But since the poor guy is getting the cold shoulder, he decides to pull a little prank to break her facade. If she wanted to play hard to get, he would have to unleash his trump card. He cups his hands, shouting to the heavens about a certain maiden's scandalous reading habits. "I know a girl who enjoys some very forbidden scrolls," he announces. Panic flashes in her eyes. She demands silence, terrified. Her secret reputation will be ruined. "What kind of taboo story is it?" he teases, leaning in with a devilish grin. She swears she would die of absolute shame if the sect ever found out. "Calm down," he chuckles, beckoning her closer. "If you want my silence, come here and explain yourself. The trap is set. Stop stalling and approach," he commands, "or I will broadcast your secrets to the world." The poor girl realizes she is completely cornered. Defeated, she sighs, her face burning as she inches toward him. Our hero laughs, revealing it was all a bluff, but he spoke a second too late. Her embarrassment turns into a lethal strike. Miraculously, she trips mid-attack, tumbling awkwardly to the side. Or was it an accident? Fate had other plans. She lands right where she intended, leaning in close enough to share breath. The air crackles with sudden tension. She whispers a secret into his ear, words meant only for him. She pulls back, leaving the mighty warrior trembling from the encounter. "Stop playing with people's hearts like that," she scolds, flustered. She claims she is exhausted by his antics and turns to leave. She is returning to the moon pavilion, and he is strictly forbidden from following. With a swirl of spiritual energy, she vanishes into thin air. Our hero stands alone, feeling a bit hollow after her sudden departure. She scolded him, fled, and left him in the dust. He dismissed her threat as empty words, but he was too distracted to sense a new presence closing in from the shadows. He still could not fathom the depths of her shyness. Suddenly a voice cuts through his thoughts. "Am I interrupting something, my lord?" It is the second seat of the Twin Moon Order, the White Rabbit. Su Liang asks her business, secretly relieved that White Flower escaped just in time. She reports that they dealt a devastating blow to the Black Moon sect, though the rats managed to scurry away with their lives. He nods in gratitude. "Let them run," he declares. "When the full moon rises, this vendetta ends once and for all." Destroying an ancient legacy requires more than brute force. He activates his technique, summoning the mystical moon in the lake. Ripples form in the air, and from the spectral waters, the crescent star manifests. He looks upon the entity ready to negotiate. "Let us strike a bargain," he proposes. He demands her divine power for the coming night. The price, the location of her missing sheath. Her spirit stirs. Sensing the truth in his words, her eyes slowly flutter open, ancient awareness returning to her gaze. As consciousness floods back, a pillar of blinding light erupts from the tower. Below the sect, disciples tremble in fear of the unknown power. "Who dares stand at the summit?" they cry. Above the crescent star grasps the lance, her spiritual transformation finally reaching its apex. Since he is not currently dead, he takes that as her agreement. Immediately, he burns 30 points in the heavenly tome to scan for answers. Target: the guardian beast of the sheath. At Kang's mental command, the ancient book begins to decipher the secrets of the world. Warning: access denied. The system mocks him. His authority level is too low to unveil the full truth of the frost flower. The veil remains partially drawn. He learns only this: the frost flower is the lost sheath of the crescent star, one of the legendary 7 sacred weapons. These were the pinnacles of ancient craftsmanship, living weapons forged from mythical beasts unrivaled under the heavens. Each weapon holds a unique core, a key that allows its master to shatter their limits and ascend to a higher realm of cultivation. Long ago, chaos in the east severed the star from its flower. But the system flashes a red alert: danger lies ahead. To survive the perilous eastern region, he must form a true blood contract with an emperor rank beast. Anything less means certain death. He realizes the chilling truth. To hold the sheath, the enemy must possess a supreme lord rank creature. Stealing it will be a suicide mission. The frost flower awaits in the east, he reveals. The crescent star stands stoic, her expression unreadable as stone. He drops the bombshell. To reclaim it, we must wage war against the Queen of Feathers in the frozen forest. Still, she seems unmoved. Then she turns her back, fists trembling with suppressed rage. Our boy watches, calculating his next move. Reality sets in. The Twin Moon Order is like an egg. Striking a rock, they stand 0 chance against a celestial queen. She is a monster dozens of times stronger than Kang Yu. Defeating her is a feat that should take years of grueling training. Yet he sees the desperation in the spirit's posture. Gathering his resolve, he makes a bold gamble. "Give me 3 years. Grant me this time," he swears, eyes burning with determination, "and I promise to drag the frozen queen from her throne." The crescent star turns bewildered. Why did he make such a reckless vow? Doubt creeps in. Does she even believe a mere mortal can fulfill such a legendary quest? Silence hangs heavy in the air. Finally, her voice echoes. "For centuries, the 7 weapons have stood in defiance of the butterfly moon goddess. My heart holds only hatred, but in your eyes, I see truth." For a fleeting moment, she feels the warmth of hope again. Grateful he allowed her to dream. Suddenly, our boy's sentimentality shatters. You could talk this whole time. Rage boils within him at the deception. All that silent dancing and aloofness was just her messing with him. She was ignoring him out of pure spite. However, he decides to let the past burn, for what is done cannot be undone. Soy vows to pour his soul into keeping the stream alive, but a burning question remains. Will she finally surrender to his will? She reveals their rivalry spans, eras, and if he truly desires to conquer the sheath, a divine union is within his grasp. Yet she warns him if he seeks to forge a legacy, it is impossible without the sheath's power. But wait, what does she imply by that? Our hero is just as bewildered as the rest of us. Meanwhile, chaos erupts in the Academy's grand hall where the blonde girl is, screaming that she missed the child's words. But the goth girl cuts her off, warning she will speak only once more before ordering her immediate banishment. Kang Yu has already declared total war on their faction, so trash like her has no place here. Her ally emerges from the shadows, urging her to silence her tongue. That woman is a direct descendant of the Blue Sea's curved moon, a force not even Kang Yu could easily suppress. The redhead steps forward, her eyes widening as she asks, is this not Princess Bai Yu herself? She realizes that Bai Yu possesses the legendary physique. This so-called sacred body empowers any lunar beast to unleash its absolute potential under her command. The princess coldly retorts that if defeat is her destiny, they shall witness it in blood. But this fortress was funded by her empire, and by her royal decree. Entry is forbidden to their kind. They must retreat. The girl's temper snaps, her face twisting in rage as she warns her not to tempt fate. But the princess merely smiles, unleashing a crushing aura that brings them to their knees. However, stepping into the fray is the Silver Bunny from our boy's faction, demanding passage by the supreme order of the Lunar King. The redhead gasps, recognizing a high-ranking officer of the Twin Moon Order who simply reiterates the command to the princess. Stand aside. The princess offers a sharp smile, granting Sister Bunny permission. And just like that, Kang Yu's harem finally breaches the gates. The princess then turns her gaze to Silver Bunny, demanding her rank within the Twin Moon Order. She replies calmly that she holds the second seat, asking the reason for the inquiry. The princess scoffs, remarking that, if that is true, the 12th seat must be barely stronger than herself. But she vows that within 3 years her power will rival even the first seat. Silver Bunny barely reacts, stating she is eagerly awaiting the day they can battle as comrades. Yet internally, she notes that this girl's arrogance knows no bounds. Still, once the tournament commences, the true terror of the sacred body will be unveiled to the world. On the eve of the full moon, a figure lurks in the shadows while patrols march by. She smirks, confident in her stealth, mocking the guards' inability to sense her presence. She whispers into the darkness, asking if her allies are entertained. A dewdrop atop a leaf vibrates, replying yes, but urging caution, as they tread on hostile northern soil. The voice adds that they only came to satisfy their curiosity regarding the fate of the Black Moon sect. They seek not only the ultimate victor, but to witness which beasts have been blessed by the moon god. After all, he appears to be a mere one-star tamer. How could such a weakling topple an emperor? She then questions why the observer above remains silent. He answers grimly. The fact that the Lunar King is only a one-star tamer is precisely what makes him the most terrifying anomaly of all. Meanwhile, our hero remains perched atop the tower. Wake up, you fool. Suddenly a flash pierces the horizon, and he senses imminent doom. Boom, they detonate the tower from the foundation. It was that treacherous antelope, boasting that she has finally extinguished that cursed existence. She praises Black Whale for pinpointing his exact coordinates. The man panics, asking for their extraction route. She dismisses his fear, declaring it irrelevant because she is certain that having slain the Lunar King, the gods will now shower her with glory. However, a chilling pressure descends from the sky. Our boy praises the moon in the lake and instantly summons the crescent star, who answers his call with unwavering loyalty. He commands her to awaken, and the moment her eyes snap open, she is primed for slaughter. The antelope realizes she has kicked a hornet's nest. She slams her palm down, activating a warp zone, and vanishes in a heartbeat. Abandoning her allies, the man screams her name in despair, for that wretch left not only him but the beast behind to die. The enemy antelope raises a desperate barrier, but Su Yang simply flicks his wrist, unleashing the crescent star. The attack obliterates the tower, and the two fools are vaporized instantly. Meanwhile, the traitor thinks she is safe, miles away, until a shiver runs down her spine. She glances back, just as a beam of green energy consumes her. Another soul erased from the game. Back at the arena, Shu announces to the world that the tournament is live. She vows not to miss a single pixel of the action. So everyone smash that like button right now. The petite streamer is vibrating with energy, her viewer count skyrocketing into the millions. It is all because the legendary beasts chosen by the Lunar King will finally take the stage. Skeptics in the chat argue it is too soon as the full moon has not yet reached its zenith. The girl laughs off their worries. Victory or defeat means nothing. All that matters is witnessing the clash of emperors and living to tell the tale. Enough talk. The duel between these titans is merely the prologue to a greater war. But that wretched girl needs to be removed from the board immediately. If her evolution continues unchecked, she will become a catastrophic threat within 3 years. With the tension mounting, the host offered gratitude to the gathered masses before reciting the iron laws of the arena. To step onto this battlefield, you must not have seen 20 winters. Secondly, your spirit beast must be chosen at the onset. No additional reinforcements can be summoned once the clash of steel begins. Furthermore, warriors may admit defeat to preserve their lives. Fourth, it is strictly forbidden to warriors. Unleash wrath upon the spectators or the beastmasters themselves. With the decrees set, the tournament officially commenced. At that very instant, the young princess petitioned her aunt to strike first. But the elder refused. The full moon had not yet ascended to its zenith. Her power had to be preserved to aid the Lunar King in his fated duel against Kang Wu 3 years from now. Meanwhile, our protagonist observes the foe, skirmishes from the shadows. The spectacle had begun, yet the true danger remained hidden. His senses flared, detecting several emperor-ranked percentity entities closing in. That was the calamity he feared. No doubt they approached to witness his impending clash against the Black Moon sect. The crescent star turned to him, asking if he felt the disturbance. He assumed she meant the emperors, but she shook her head. It was something far more profound. The moon gods themselves were scrutinizing his every breath. Meanwhile, down in the arena, a sudden explosion rocked the ground. A massive alligator roared in agony before falling silent. Its master collapsed in despair, watching his cherished beast face annihilation. The blonde spectator yawned, barely keeping her eyes open amidst the mediocrity. She demanded to know how many of these dull skirmishes had it's already passed, and if it was finally time for a high-tier warrior to step in. Her companion explained that this was merely the 5th match. Stretching her limbs, she scoffed that they were wasting precious time. Since these cowards refused to act, she would ignite the spark herself. She leaped into the arena, shouting a challenge to see if any Empire dog dared to face her. The princess seethed with fury, but her aunt warned her to hold her position. Yet the flames of battle burned too hot, and she ignored the order, descending into the ring. The aunt cried out that it was too perilous, but the princess waved it off. She merely wished to kill some time. Knowing the black moon would arrive shortly, she sought a moment of amusement. The blonde scoffed, asking if this child truly possessed the courage to face her. The princess retorted that the full moon rises soon, and she would have no leisure for games then. She intended to silence these filthy southerners while she still had the chance. Enraged by the insult, the blonde vowed to make her pay, but a firm hand landed on her shoulder. It was the crimson-haired warrior, declaring that she would take command of this battle. Her ally was perplexed, questioning why she would stoop to fight a 3-star child, but then realized the redhead must have a scheme. Perhaps she sought this opportunity to accidentally extinguish the girl's life. Yet the blonde protested, claiming the redhead was too arrogant to steal her prey like that, but a single cold glare from her companion silenced her. The redhead knew something was unnatural about this child. She had to ensure none of the 5 fell at this preliminary stage, which is why she chose to step into the fray. The princess smirked, calling it a wise decision, for crushing a weakling would be tedious. At least now, the entertainment would last a bit longer. The redhead immediately began her invocation, summoning a supreme-ranked lunar pearl, spirit, a supreme-ranked hydrofloater, and another supreme entity known simply as Leaf. She then demanded the princess summon her beasts without delay. Or did she intend to forfeit and flee in disgrace? The princess replied that her companion was suffering from constipation, so patience was required. The crowd was baffled by such absurdity. The redhead sneered, granting her all the time she needed to prepare for her doom. The audience leaned in, eyes glued to the stage. Suddenly, the princess revealed a pill and swallowed it in one motion. The blonde cried foul, accusing her of using forbidden stimulants. However, the rivality, redhead realized it was not a battle stimulant but a high-grade cultivation pill. The observer noted that consuming such a treasure only made sense if she was on the brink of evolution. The princess snapped her eyes open. In that fleeting instant, she below broke through the bottleneck, ascending to 4 stars. The blue-haired observer noted she could now wield her beast's true potential, yet even that might not suffice to fell the redhead. But the princess declared her power was more than sufficient. Suddenly, two blinding auras erupted from her, being the radiant soul and the echo of the crescent moon. The redhead scoffed, asking if she truly believed victory was possible with mere Wesent. Spirits warning that no imperial aid would save her now. The princess paused for a heartbeat, then burst into maniacal laughter, calling the redhead a comedian. It seemed these ignorant southerners knew nothing of the sacred body, but that was about to change this very instant. In a flash, the creature beside her vanished into thin air and in the same microsecond appeared, face to face with the redhead. Disaster was imminent, a direct strike was coming. A concentrated explosion shook the entire Colosseum foundation. The blonde gasped, unable to track the movement with her naked eye. Her friend urged composure. The true battle had only just begun. Naturally, victory would not come so easily. The redhead had effortlessly shielded herself with her verdant fortress. The princess's beast roared in fury, unleashing a catastrophic barrage of attacks. The sound was so deafening that the crowd clutched their ears in pain, yet the opponent simply scoffed, demanding to see her true power. Suddenly, the colossal pearl materialized before her, launching a devastating counterstrike. Heavens, the princess took a direct hit to the solar plexus, sent careening through the air and cratering the earth below. Mercy was non-existent. A second blow landed instantly. As her beast closed in, from the heavens, the princess's guardian reacted with lightning speed to intercept. But then, the enemy extended, a mystical orb reflecting the princess's own visage, detonating point-blank at her fingertips. The explosion dealt a critical blow to her gut, forcing the royal to collapse in utter defeat. The crowd whispered of her brutal humiliation. The blonde observer noted this was the terrifying might of the Peach Moon Saint. The power gap was absolute. But just then, the shimmer of energy enveloped the princess. Peach declared victory, yet her own destructive force suddenly rebounded, striking her directly. She staggered back from the blast, eyes wide in disbelief that the wretched girl reflected the strike, meant to end her life. Her guardian beast stood useless against the recoil. Panic flickered in the saint's eyes. Unsure of her next move, she hastily invoked a restoration technique, mending her wounds layer by layer. Finally, she was fully revitalized, drawing sighs of relief from her allies. Realizing the bubble's reflection, she decided to rely solely on the pearl. Its explosive velocity was nearly impossible to halt. But suddenly, the fallen mermaid on the arena floor began to convulse, undergoing a grotesque mutation. Defying death, she rose again. Peach could only gasp in shock. The creature clashed head-on with the pearl, and in the chaos, the artifact was partially shattered. Never had a favored beast revived with such ferocity. Was this the true potential of the sacred moon body? The princess smirked, declaring the real battle had only just begun. The games were over. As the full moon ascended, her beast let out a blood-curdling roar. All knew the moonlight granted power, but this surge defied logic. Peach trembled. Could a mere physique bridge a gap of 3 entire ranks? High above, the protagonist observed the chaos, noting the oppressive aura of the fully awakened moon body. The creature, now a titan, lunged at Peach. A single tail swipe decimated the arena floor. The girl feared for her life, though the beast aimed only for her summons. Suddenly, the princess's monster launched into the sky, appearing to take flight. Peach stood bewildered by this strategy. From the heavens, the beast unleashed a cataclysmic strike, but a hooded figure materialized, mocking her arrogance for relying solely on her physical constitution. At this level, she was merely a nuisance. He extended a hand and judgment fell in the form of a lightning bolt. The girl writhed in agony as her creature plummeted from the sky. The princess despaired, realizing she might never uncover the Lunar King's secrets. Then she noticed that not only her device but all communications had been severed. Suddenly, a peculiar rabbit manifested in the arena. Delivering a swift ear slap, the man roared the name Tinta, summoning a towering black wall. Just then, a similar, yet supreme-ranked rabbit materialized. He eyed the protagonist's companion, noting she resembled a lunar rabbit, but felt and my distinct. He demanded to know her gender, and if she possessed the gift of speech. Seeing her silence, he sighed that this would be boring. Energy began to coalesce in his gut. With his ears, he produced 2 spiked maces. The little rabbit roared, leaping into the fray, but the counterattack was instantaneous. A brutal strike to the stomach sent her flying. She was blasted clear out of the arena boundaries. The man, thrilled, declared they were nearing their goal. Meanwhile, our hero watched passively with his butterflies from a high-rise. White Flower asked for orders, but he remained calm. "Do not worry," he said. "That rabbit's recovery speed surpasses even the sacred body." But suddenly both the moon and the crescent flower sensed a disturbance. Hovering above was the lightning moon princess, unleashing a calamity upon the arena. Once again, city faced total annihilation. The landscape was obliterated, save for a desperate barrier raised just in time. It was a failsafe for this exact nightmare. Yet her thoughts turned fearfully to the fate of the Lunar King. Miraculously, his castle stood pristine amidst the ruins. The lightning princess gasped. Impossible. How could he remain unmoved by such destruction? But our protagonist was trembling in terror. The moon in the lake had shielded him from the crescent star's earlier assaults, but this time the energy was nearly extinguished by the lightning princess's cataclysm. And in that moment of vulnerability, the crescent star stepped forward. She declares she will take matters into her own hands. Ascending toward the heavens, she hovers before the pale moon, raising a hand as if beckoning for celestial power. The onlookers hold their breath, sensing a devastating counterstrike. In that split second, the lightning princess unsheathes her twin blades of destruction. The weapons fuse and morph, taking the form of two battle-hungry spirits. They yearn to clash with the crescent star, a legend among artifacts. They rush forward with arrogance, claiming her legend only survived because she never had to face their might in the bygone era. But a cold glint flashes in her eyes. In a heartbeat, the insolent fools are obliterated. The real slaughter hasn't even started yet. Just like that, two supreme rank entities are erased from existence. The hooded figure coughs up blood, realizing he severely underestimated his opponent. Suddenly, a terrifying energy manifests overhead. The Thunder Princess desperately raises her barrier against the coming storm. The crescent star's strike tears the earth asunder. Chaos reigns supreme as the sky opens up, weeping a torrential downpour over the battlefield. Yet those on the platform remain unnervingly calm, even as half the arena is pulverized. Then, abruptly, the onslaught ceases. The celestial blade realigns with the crescent moon. Suang watches in awe, witnessing a power he had only ever imagined until now. Seeing the sheath's synergy, Peach realizes something terrifying. If she could dismantle 3 Black Moon Association elites this effortlessly, then even Kangoo would face a desperate struggle. Meanwhile, the defeated princess is dragged off the stage in disgrace. She murmurs that the Lunar King's might is truly absolute. But the Crescent Star warns Suang sharply, this is no time to lose focus. That devastating technique has a limit. It can be unleashed only once more under the full moon's gaze. Suang's blood boils with excitement. He grins, declaring that one more strike is all they need. He turns to White Flower. The stage is now hers to conquer. Her mission is simple: stall for time at all costs. As expected, she bristles at being ordered around like a pawn. But the main character insists, stick to the plan. All of this is merely a prelude for the arrival of the true monarchs. Suddenly, his senses spike. He burns with curiosity to witness her true form bathed in moonlight. What manner of being approaches? Just how catastrophic will her power be? Meanwhile, the arrogant mages believe a 3-on-1 assault guarantees their victory. But behind the Black Rabbit an aura swells. He spins around and behold, the main character's fierce little rabbit has returned. She is completely restored. Realizing her regeneration is off the charts, he smirks, declaring, now things get interesting. She lunges. He mocks her clumsy movements, spinning his ears like lethal blades. Yet she clashes head-on, fearing nothing. Aerial threat incoming. He severs her ear, but flesh knits back together in seconds. Bewilderment begins to cloud his eyes. How can a mere beast possess such immortal vitality? He accelerates, slashing her 3 times in a blur of motion. But she rises instantly. The enemy is gasping for breath, realizing he lacks the lethal power to keep her down. He starts strategizing. If he cannot kill her, he must bury her and escape. He flings his ears skyward, roaring that he will end this farce now. A catastrophic strike slams into her. A mushroom cloud rises, obliterating the terrain, leaving Peach stunned by the sheer destructive force. The earth hasn't just been torn. He's gouged out a bottomless abyss. The enemy crows in triumph. She is buried kilometers deep. From those depths, there is no return. The main character is proud of his rabbit's tenacity, but now that she is entombed, he prepares to summon the Crescent Star as a last resort. But suddenly, a strange tremor runs through the earth. The ground before the Black Rabbit quakes violently. Impossible. She is rising from the very pit intended to be her grave. Her fur now glows with an ominous violet hue. The enemy recoils. She has evolved into a mid-tier beast right before his eyes. He has never heard of a creature forcing evolution mid-battle. But the protagonist recalls the ancient texts, intense emotional exposure, and volatile emotional surges catalyze evolution. He realizes with dread that she will only grow stronger the longer this fight drags on. The enemy beast is insulted, refusing to acknowledge a lowly lunar rabbit as an equal. Roaring, he charges for another kill. His earblade strikes true, but it bounces off. She stands unscathed. The horror sets in. The power gap has completely vanished. Desperate, he throws his entire being into one final suicidal charge. But in a flash, steel meets flesh. With a mere flick of her ear, she unleashes a shockwave that disintegrates the landscape. The hooded master is left reeling in critical condition. His defensive ink is completely dissolved. A shadow approaches and terror grips his heart. The sheer danger in the air is suffocating. A silhouette emerges under the full moon. White Flower has arrived. Thankfully, her transformation remains within the realm of decency. The enemy is Thunderstruck, a humanoid-type beast. Now the defeat of the Water Emperor makes perfect sense. Meanwhile, the colossal Thunder Princess unleashes a barrage of spells, but White Flower deflects them effortlessly with a barrier. The hooded man sneers, claiming that since she stands alone, surrender is her only option. White Flower silences him. "Spare me your prattle. I am only here to force your hand. So, summon your final beast." Cornered. The man unfurls a forbidden scroll warning that he is about to unleash the ultimate technique, stealing the power of every creature he has ever slain. In that critical moment, she realizes she might have. Facing over 10 supreme sovereigns is suicide, yet they dare challenge her position. But White Flower scoffs at their prattle. She vows to demonstrate true terror. Raising her hand, she declares this technique requires the blessing of the full moon. A blinding radiance envelops her form. She transcends, awakening the avatar of the Cloud Princess. Twin blades manifest in her grip. Her opponent freezes instantly, recognizing the legendary Imperial arms. White Flower's gaze locks on for a split second and then vanishes. A flash step places her directly behind the enemy. That slash was absolute perfection. The victim is carved to ribbons, while Peach fails to track even a shadow of the movement. Truly, the Cloud Empress wields a terrifying might. Even the absolute defense of the Undying Mage shatters like glass. She deduces the dissipation comes from a damage-nullifying beast. The cursed scroll retreats, warning her against arrogance. He summons a radiant winged butterfly that catches White Flower's eye. Suddenly, a torrent of luminescent energy blasts toward her. She evades the frontal assault with grace, but the beams ricochet. The attack strikes from her blind spot. Her garments are torn asunder. We remain decent for the audience, but the sky suddenly erupts in a chaotic explosion. She materializes behind the scroll artifact, mocking his reliance on repetitive meteor arts. The wretch is bewildered, but White Flower silences him. She scorns his dependence on inferior subordinates. With a decisive slash, the scroll is severed. Surely its spirit is extinguished. The hooded figure cries out in despair. White Flower notes that heeding her warning would have spared him this agony. His arrogance cost him everything. He was a fool to challenge the Lunar King's authority. Defeated, he orders the Lunar Palace to surrender the transfer contract. Elsewhere, the Fox Maiden observes through her mystic water droplet. The oracle speaks of a new destiny. It claims the girl shall ascend as the Snow Queen. The fox scoffs at such a notion until a terrifying aura surges. Heavens. The entire city faces annihilation. Our protagonist is whisked away by butterflies while White Flower is blasted backward. He questions if an emperor has descended. She hesitates, confirming this entity is on the verge of that godlike realm. A colossal emerald sphere manifests before them. The seal breaks and a foot steps forth from the void. A lethargic maiden emerges. Peach and the fox tremble, recognizing a warrior from the Supreme Palace itself. Why would the Black Moon invoke such a calamity? The system screams a warning. She possesses the blood of an emperor. She stands at the pinnacle of the supreme rank. The princess curses the woman's shameless power. Even the full Twin Moon Order would struggle against her. The entity yawns lazily until a sudden detail catches her eye. The Thunder Maiden questions the shift. The intruder notes the moonlight here feels tainted and unnatural. Furthermore, a swarm of radiant butterflies fills the air, an impossible sight for the frozen northern wastes. Her ally is confused, but she dismisses the anomaly. The only thing that matters is the enemy standing before them. She identifies White Flower as the target. Energy gathers in her palms, condensing into lethal force. Razor-sharp claws manifest on her hands. White Flower silently shifts into her combat stance. She disappears instantly. They clash in the heavens, zigzagging faster than the mortal eye can track. Spectators gaze in awe. White Flower is matching her blow for blow. Su Yang is stunned by this display of raw intensity. This is a clash of supreme beings, a scale of warfare where mere humans would vaporize instantly. White Flower lands and the enemy unleashes hell. A cataclysmic barrage of emerald light bombards the earth. The poor girl is overwhelmed. She is blown away as the attack slices the very mountain in twain. Shifting to spirit form saved her by a hair's breadth. Our hero nearly met his end, without even realizing it. His rabbit companion intervenes just in time. Without that shield, he would have been obliterated. The rabbit reforms its body. Su Yang realizes it feeds on emotion and moonlight growing exponentially stronger. It has not even reached its peak. With renewed vigor, the beast hurls itself back into the fray. Meanwhile, White Flower is being suppressed. The emerald adversary is the moon of the Treasure Palace, or simply Treasure. Treasure suddenly intercepts the rabbit. She demands to know who dares launch such a treacherous ambush. She smashes the creature into the earth with earth-shaking force. White Flower advances through the dust. Dual blades ready, she unleashes an explosive wave downward. The hooded man screams for the Thunder Maiden to assist. She raises her arms, summoning the heaven's wrath. But the storm clouds evaporate. She stands bewildered by the failure. A spectral green figure looms beside her. She realizes with horror that the accursed crescent star has arrived. She desperately tries to channel her power, driven by the need to save the girl. But strangely, the crescent moon doesn't even deign to look at her, simply walking away. Explosions bloom like deadly flowers. The rabbit and white moon retreat. Treasure sneers, asking how two pieces of trash like them dare to raise their hands against her. Energy condenses in her palm. She promises to teach them true terror. A storm of emerald moons bombards them. White Flower is shredded, but she slips away using her astral form. The rabbit, however, takes the heavy fire. She has no choice. She dives behind the beast. Her phantom ability has reached its limit. One more hit will draw real blood. Now she must rely on regeneration to survive. But her spiritual energy is draining fast. This cannot last. She buys herself 60 seconds at best. Suddenly, her senses scream. An ambush strikes from the rear. Beams of light shatter the green moons. Treasure is baffled. The crescent star has entered the battlefield. Treasure curses the timing. Victory was in her grasp. But for White Flower, this is the opening she prayed for. Time to end this. She dismisses her blades, letting them dissolve into light. She places a hand against her temple, sending a mental signal. Sulang mocks the strange pose, but the atmosphere suddenly grows heavy. She pulls in every ounce of surrounding mana. Distracted Treasure fails to sense the gathering storm. A vortex of power swirls behind the rabbit. Treasure finally realizes this is no ordinary girl. White Flower reveals. She is the true moon chaser. Surrender now, and she might be spared. But the witch just cackles at the child's arrogance. A corrupted sigil manifests in the heavens. Treasure vows to reduce this entire world to ash. Unfazed White Flower reaches out. A colossal spirit deer materializes, charging straight ahead. The beast slams headfirst into the dark circle. Boom! A shockwave rips through the air, burying the arena in dust. The audience is blind to the outcome. The sect elder laughs, mocking the Lunar King for his weakness. I have no idea what that old fool is babbling about. Sulang stands there, an island of calm in the chaos. He gazes upward, asking if the gods are entertained. But the appetizer is finished. The main course begins now. Terror grips the crowd as the sky turns pitch black. The moon itself is being swallowed by shadow. Sulang admits his heart was pounding before, but now, in the face of an emperor-level threat, his mind is still as water. White Flower questions his sanity. He simply smiles. The concept of losing doesn't exist in his dictionary. She stares shocked. He confirms it with a swagger that mirrors the legendary Lunar King of old. The Black Moon cultists triggered something deep within him, memories that feel more like fever dreams. Images flash growing up in the northern palace, doted on by the maids living a life of luxury. To test reality, he once wrote a tome in English, but a higher power wiped those words from existence. The truth hits hard, there never was a previous owner. He has always been the master of this body. He was born into this realm carrying the soul and memories of a man from Earth. But those memories were sealed away, only unlocking 2 months ago after a blow to the head. This proves the Black Moon was right 3 years ago. Terrifying entities are watching from the shadows. His pet is the key to ascending as God's apostle. Suddenly, the heavens split open. A titanic claw descends. Massive horns, flowing fur. I expected a jade beauty, but it's a colossal demonic goat. The scale is unfathomable. The beast glares down, and the protective barrier around the arena begins to crack. Sulang knows if that shield fails, it's a massacre. The goat sneers, mocking the Black Moon cult's decline. You summoned a calamity for this, she booms. Who is the poor soul I must crush? They point to God's apostle. She scoffs, unable to believe the cult can't handle a backwater region like the North. How the mighty have fallen, she grumbles. Fine. I suppose I can entertain myself before I leave. Sulang stands amidst a swirl of spirit butterflies, looking effortless. He produces a vial from his robes. He grins at White Flower. Essence of Wingfang Tong. He uncorks it and lets a single drop fall. The crowd is baffled. Why would he pour such a substance onto the dirt? This, he declares, is our shortcut. White Flower stares utterly lost. But then, a menacing buzz fills the air. The audience turns their gaze toward the horizon. A golden cloud descends. Sulang smiles, eyes gleaming. I have always been the true master of the Moon Book. The apostle of the northern region didn't just gather the butterflies. He forged a soul-bound contract with every single one. Days ago, his spiritual command rippled out to his thralls, triggering a mass exodus from every corner of the realm. Even ancient pacts were shattered in an instant. To blind his enemies to the truth, he drew every winged spirit from the north, setting the stage for a legendary clash against an emperor. He throws the grimoire open. The girls hold their breath. Is the Lunar King truly summoning a beast of emperor rank? Anticipation hangs heavy in the air. Suddenly, the swarm detaches from him, drifting away like smoke. Cowards, someone mocks, thinking they are fleeing. But Peach trembles. She knows this arena is about to become a graveyard of emperors. He gazes into the heavens, challenging the moon goddess herself. Is this spectacle enough to satisfy your divine gaze? If the deity was watching, then the time for a miracle had finally arrived. The goat sneers. These pests are weak, yet their sheer numbers are irritating. She aches to crush that insolent brat, but she stays her hand. Annihilating so many lunar spirits would cost her the moon's blessing forever. Yet our protagonist smirks. The trap is set. He has linked his soul to over 1,300,000 butterflies. Suddenly, the grimoire violently trembles. He prays for just one specific leaf, the most difficult page to turn in the moon book's ancient history. He never suspected the lore of the 7 divine weapons had been deliberately concealed from him. This artifact held sealed mysteries wiped from his mind. With its true primordial power unleashed, his cultivation would have ascended realms by now. A sudden pulse of energy hits him. The page begins to turn. A pillar of golden light pierces the heavens. The fox shudders, crushed by the suffocating pressure of an emperor's aura. From the shadows, Kang Yu steps forth. The Lunar King meets his doom at this festival, she declares with cold certainty. Her silhouette fades into the wind. The show is over, she whispers, vanishing completely into the void. The fox stands frozen, terrified. How long had that wretched assassin been lurking in their blind spot? As the butterflies converge, a wing of titanic scale eclipses the sky. The pressure forces the entire arena to their knees. Bai weeps openly, her soul shaken by witnessing a miracle beyond mortal comprehension. The hooded man asks the goat if victory is possible. She laughs maniacally, tears streaming down her face. Beat that, it is impossible. They had endured for eons, but the Black Moon cult ends today. Victory has vanished from their future. Resignation washes over them. It is time to bow out. Mere mortals do not belong in this era of monsters. He stares confused by her terror. The goat whispers, I have walked this earth for centuries, yet never have I seen a true apostle of the gods, until this very moment. Descending upon the battlefield is the legendary butterfly guarding the palace. The hooded man trembles. What manner of emperor-level monstrosity is this? The beast simply flaps its wings once, and a cataclysmic earthquake tears through the region, silencing the world. Even the mighty thunder giant is forced to bow. The protagonist's own summons collapse under the sheer spiritual weight. The poor fox is crushed by the aftershock. She curses her luck. No being in the central plains possesses such godlike might. If the goat was a titan, this creature was a celestial body, a planet compared to a grain of sand. The goat closes her eyes, accepting her fate. To perish before such majesty is a warrior's greatest honor. Let my spirit dissolve into the moon's radiance, she prays, that I may witness the eternal generations to come. Man, she has completely lost her mind. Meanwhile, our hero and the 2 idiots lie unconscious in the dust. In the darkness, fragments of his past life, as the lunar god flood back. This scene, it mirrors the tragedy of 3 years ago. Back then, he had annihilated everything in his path. History was repeating itself in a cruel loop. He held the title of Lunar King even then. But this time, the surge of power did not shatter his mind. Summoning the beast was not the trigger for his amnesia. Panic sets in. He realizes the scale of the calamity he has unleashed. The Great Barrier is pulverized, yet the masses only sleep. The moon reflection in the lake has granted them one final divine protection. The summoned beast had no concept of its master's amnesia, unleashing its full might without restraint. The lesson is etched in blood. He must reclaim his true identity before his own power consumes the world. The Black Moon cult lies in ruins. Their leader burned 20 years of his own life force just to survive the blast. But Su Lang looks down with cold eyes. This battle, he declares, was entirely meaningless. The elder nods grimly. Indeed. For the gods were never watching us to begin with. Did he burn his very life force in vain? Did he truly believe the festival would grant him salvation? The elder pauses, letting out a hollow laugh, telling the Lunar King to spare him such foolish questions. After all, the blood of the Moonlight clan runs through his veins too, so it was only natural that he hungered to dethrone the strongest existence of this era. As long as a sliver of victory remained, he would never extinguish his own flame. It is a tragedy that this was merely a cruel play, orchestrated by the heavens, for the chasm of power between them was simply insurmountable. Swang questions why the old man slaved away for the god's favor. He urges him to let go of those chains. and acknowledge that at the very least their clash today was exhilarating. The old man asks if Suang truly felt the thrill of battle and if his strength was enough to trouble the Lunar King even slightly. Suang nods solemnly. He poured his soul into this duel, and now that the dust has settled, there is no need for further disrespect. As the elder's form begins to dissolve into light, he admits it is a mercy to vanish amidst these gentle lies. With his final breath, he commands Suang to etch these next words into his soul, for they hold the key to his lost memories. In that legendary battle of the past, he too had summoned the palace guardian, the eight-winged butterfly. The cataclysm that occurred that day wiped 1/3 of the northern continent off the map. Yet, bizarrely, the world remained silent. It was as if humanity had their minds wiped of that tragedy. He warns that the event was far more sinister than it appeared, and advises Suang to guard his life with everything he has. The divine machinations woven around him are more treacherous than he could ever imagine. With the old man's death, the Black Moon cult finally crumbles. Yet victory tastes like ash in Suang's mouth. The void in his memories was never caused by the cult, and the terrifying entity responsible for obliterating 1/3 of the North stands leagues above his current power. He clenches his fists until his knuckles turn white, then forces himself to let go. For now, he is powerless to change fate. A strange heaviness settles in his chest, burdening his heart despite the crisis ending. But perhaps for just a fleeting, the moment he can finally rest, his consciousness fades and he collapses before them all. Hours later, the fox spirit remarks on the insanity of it all. Mere ripples of that distant energy were enough to knock them unconscious. The regretful part is that they missed the grand finale of the duel. Suddenly, her expression shifts to pure shock. High in the heavens, a colossal, glowing deer dominates the sky. Beside it, the little bunny strides across the clouds asking the current sky goddess for her opinion on the show she just orchestrated. The opening she forced during the battle was magnificent, but the deer coldly warns her never to meddle with the Moonlight Festival again. Furthermore, she is stripped of her freedom to roam the northern territory. The little bunny pauses her silence heavy before pouting and calling the deer truly heartless. She turns to leave, claiming with a sly smile that there must be a misunderstanding. She never actually interfered with the festival. The victor was simply the boy wielding the moon god's scripture, meaning they no longer need to scour the earth for a perfect vessel. To clarify this divine complexity, these are two supreme entities, gods, who sit even above the moon, debating mortal affairs. The colossal deer is the reigning great goddess gazing down at the unconscious white flower. She shifts her gaze to our boy sprawling on the ground with his arms wide open like a fool, and a faint rare smile graces her lips. 30 minutes later, the fox spectator is still reeling from the awe. She actually witnessed true gods right before her eyes. She reveals that the deer is the legendary creator of the 7 divine weapons. Her title is the Calamity of Pure White, an entity unseen since the previous festival. It appears the bunny and the deer share an ancient animosity, regardless of their divine origins. The little droplet interjects, noting that such supreme beings care nothing for mortals. It is safer to pretend they saw nothing and bury this secret forever. Suddenly, a voice interrupts their hushed whispers. One of the maidens from the prayer group emerges demanding to know if a divine beast truly descended. The two gossipers are paralyzed with shock. They never sensed her presence. A small bird perched in her hand chirps, telling them to relax, as the divine presence has already departed. But the fox points a sharp finger, demanding she drop the act and reveal her true identity. The maiden smiles, introducing herself as a humble servant, the beast keeper of the Twin Moon sect, a faction belonging to our very own protagonist. She claims she never expected visitors from such a distant empire and came to offer her apologies. However, the small creature resting in her hand has words of its own. The bird suddenly locks its gaze onto them, emitting an aura so terrifying that the two recoil in fear. The fox kneels instantly, recognizing that stare. The bird takes flight, bathing the area in blinding radiance. As the light fades, a majestic fur-clad form appears. This is the guardian of the moon, the protector of the protagonist sect. She warns that they have trespassed in the north without sanction. Their punishment is severe, a 1-year exile from this land and a total ban on transmitting any intelligence. Should they defy this order, they will be erased from existence. She clarifies that while she cannot meddle in the defunable Moonlight Festival, her authority over the Northern Territory is absolute. Anyone who enters her domain answers to her. Now, everything falls into place. It is no wonder she bears the name of the Archer, for her strike manifests a celestial weapon woven from the very constellations. But that is not all. She unleashes a kick with earth-shattering impact. I feared for the bystanders, but her control was absolute. Meanwhile, at the Moon Goddess Palace, the halls are pristine, yet the air is thick with the terror of the trembling attendants. Suddenly, the formidable guardian of the palace descends. She commands Sagittarius to quell her blazing fury, insisting the palace harbors no malice toward her. But her gaze turns cold as she demands to know who gave permission for that insolent wretch to leave and wreak havoc outside. Just then, the princess from the prologue makes her grand entrance. A decree is issued. The fourth concubine faces banishment in 3 days. She accepts her fate without a hint of resistance. It seems she held the title, simply because she was discovered in those desolate ancient ruins. The threads of this plot are tangled enough to confuse even the gods. An explosion, a departure, and an exile chaos reigns supreme. Gazing at the girl's portrait, she questions the lies about the non-existent northern lands. She seeks the truth of the tragedy from 3 years ago, wondering if he holds the key. Even the legendary Xuan Moon God and her nephew are involved. Back in the arena, our unconscious heroine begins to stir from her deep slumber. Her eyes flutter open, finding herself drifting in a mystical dimension to claim her hard-earned rewards. But as she glances aside, a shocking sight greets her.